To the July 1st Bel Air Beach Council meeting. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to come down. We have a student who's going to help us tonight. Tonight, folks, we have Rylan Aki, who's going to be helping us out over here. He's going to step right out over here. Right there. You ready? Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Folks, we started this. As you might guess, Councilmember Robin Aki is his mom, and he's a little nervous tonight, but Rylan's going into second grade, right? And I heard you like to play baseball. What position? First base, good spot. I like to hit home runs. Outfield and first base, good spot. And he also is a soccer player, so we wanted to thank him on behalf of the city for getting us going tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. That's for you, Rylan. There you go. Okay? You did a great job. Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Robin Aki.
Here.
Councilmember Marv Beam.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Shirley.
Here.
Councilmember Rita Swope.
Here.
Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
Finance Officer Melanie Cruzona.
Here.
Attorney Jackie Spoto-Bircher.
Here.
Thank you. Tonight, folks, we are doing something a little different. It really came out of some of our work sessions where we were wondering how to deal with responding to people from the audience who would have questions and comments and stuff. And since the general comments are all together toward the end, because the council, the attorney, the city manager all speaks, we've moved the general comments from the citizens to that spot. So when you address us, if you'll come up to the front here, this is for items that are not on the agenda. If something is on the agenda, you'll have the ability to do that as we're going along. But at the end, we're going to have that happen, and then we're not going to respond to you immediately. Right afterward, you're going to be hearing the city manager, and if most of the times it's his responsibility on an item that's raised, and he'll have the opportunity to respond back to you. Or if it's something that he can't do tonight, it'll go as an open item and it'll be picked up at the next meeting, or he will get in touch with you directly. So that's the way we'll be handling that. So the first item that we have is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes? Mr. Gunn?
I would like to amend the agenda to add two items. One is a discussion of the last budget workshop held on 6/26. I'd like to add that as an item following a report by the city treasurer, if I could, especially with the residents still in attendance. And the second item I'd like to add is a discussion of the impending Bel Air Bluffs policy regarding bicycles on the causeway sidewalks. The city of Bel Air Bluffs asked our city manager for inputs, and I believe a unilateral decision was made without consulting the council or the residents. I'd just like to open that for discussion.
Just to clarify, the budget workshop, the results would be after 3, so we'll say it's item 3.5 then. And then the one on the bicycles, do you have a position where it doesn't matter? Put it on number 11.5, you have 11 anyway, so. Okay, so we have 2 agenda changes, potential changes. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Second. Any objection? Or I guess all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so both of those will be added. Item 3.5 will be the budget workshop, and 11.5 will be the discussion of the Bel Air Bluffs bicycle situation.
I would like to make an amendment or move an item as well. Item number 10, I think we need to move that to our budget work session so that we can look at the funds that are required for the Parks and Recs events, as well as some more data on what they're planning on doing and how to get the money forward.
My understanding is that that is a presentation for that very purpose tonight. That's why that's on here. It's a quarterly report, so that's why they're coming here to explain that to us.
Where the funds can come from.
I think that's part of the presentation. Anyway, it's open, that was my comments, but do you have a second on that? There being no second, that motion is denied. Any other changes to the agenda? Then as amended, we have a, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. So we have amended agenda. And then the next item would be the presentation of the Pinellas Sheriff's Office. Sheriff?
Hello.
Good evening.
As far as your stats for the month, there was one burglary in the city. That was a theft of a bicycle from an open garage door. I don't believe there was any suspects on that. The other, I believe that was back in April with the thefts of the items off the beach. You know, that subject's been caught, he's been arrested, so nothing like that's happened since then. There's 2 minor crashes in the city, one on the causeway and then one back in the neighborhood. That's basically about it. We're still addressing the traffic issues and complaints on 22nd as well as Gulf Boulevard. So we're still doing those, and that's about it.
Sheriff, I know I'm familiar with what happened with the situation with the prior burglaries. I'm not sure everyone does. Do you mind if I tell everyone?
No, that's
Okay. We had a situation where there was someone, I guess, going up and down the beach, and correct me if I say anything wrong on this, and they were taking things off people's porches. And the sheriff, I knew that I had highlighted this the other month because I'd seen 2. It's kind of odd for us to even have 1, but we had 2 burglaries, 2 larcenies, and I was inquiring about it, and I was told by the captain that there was going to be some work done on that, some undercover work. They in fact did that undercover work, and they caught the person. So they got the person who was actually, the person was going in and taking cushions, chairs, umbrellas, things like that, right out of people's backyards and in the condos. So that's unacceptable, and our sheriff did a great job on that, great job undercover work, and we appreciate that. I know the residents there appreciate it, so excellent. Does anybody have any questions for the sheriff on council? Any citizen questions? Thank you, Sheriff, appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the monthly financial report. This is the May financial report. Melanie Cruzona.
Hello, we've got our May financial report for the month of May. That puts us into our 8th month of the fiscal year, which means we should be at about 66.67% collection on revenues and expenditures. For the general fund, we are at 70.78%, and that is mostly due to collection of the ad valorem, the FEMA grants, rental registration are all higher than budgeted for the year. Expenditures are at 65.31%, and the transfer out is at 57.95, resulting in a total expenditure of 63.39. The Marina Fund has got revenues of 74.67%. Expenditures are at 11.54, and again, as usual, that's because we're not spending because we're saving until we have a project for the marina. Capital projects are received at 118.72%, and that is also due to reimbursement for and special assessments that we're collecting for the underground utilities, Gulf Boulevard beautification, and interest income. Expenditures are at 212.9%, and that is also mainly due to Gulf Boulevard beautification and undergrounding of utilities in the stormwater project. Our total assets, cash assets in the general fund are at 3.3 million, and we earned just over 5,000 in interest in May. And the Marina Fund has 298,000. Capital Projects has 2.6 million. Total cash and investments are at 6.275 million, with interest of 9,312. This is down a couple $1 million, and that's because of payments that we have started making for the undergrounding. So that's the difference there. And so as you can see, we've got 60% in restricted, 14% are in non-current CDs, and 25.82% are in liquid cash funds. The capital projects, we've got the Gulf Boulevard beautification has $203,000 left, and I believe, Lynn, you just had something come through for that. What was that, 142,000? So we should be almost finished. I think by the end of the year we'll be completely finished with that project. The underground utilities has 278,000 left, but that includes POs that are still open. It's 827,000 in POs that are open, and that project's still moving along nicely. And that's about it for the summarized report for May. Do we have any questions?
Melanie, I just had one question, or maybe it's an observation. I think on the Gulf Boulevard beautification, I seem to remember that having to be spent by September. Is that what the rule is on that?
That is.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we're in the process of having all of that spent, right?
Yes, yes.
Because I think it's a use it or lose it deal.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Melanie?
It's not really a question, but again, I want to say thank you so much for your service to the city, and we'll greatly miss you. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Melanie, I want to echo that. I said it at the work session before, and I've complimented you several times. The work was excellent, and it was really a pleasure working with you in the short time that I was up here. But I think most of the council feel the same, and I appreciate you doing it, and I wish you all the best in your career.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you all want me up here for the vice mayor's added? No?
I don't think that's necessary.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay, next item is going to be the one that we just added, 3.5, is the discussion of the June 26th budget workshop that was requested by Vice Mayor Gunn, so I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Gunn.
Thank you. We're well into the fiscal year 1920 budget process. Back in the March, April, May timeframe, the new mayor suggested a budget committee to review the proposed fiscal year 1920 budget. Due to the compressed time schedule, the decision was to forego a separate budget committee at that time and instead to divide up the proposed budget for easier analysis by the council. It's time to revisit the concept of a dedicated committee with an eye towards the long-term out years beyond the fiscal year 2020 budget. We've made inroads in the budget. We now have a strategic plan and evaluation tool for prioritizing capital projects. The missing pieces of the puzzle remains a critical look at the high-value expenditures and revenue sources, and we haven't quite connected the dots on those items yet. I'm not sure that we clearly understand the impacts of decisions being made with the current budget on the future out years. Example would be the capital projects are essentially the expansion joint in the budget process. The current revenues do not cover the current expenditures and necessary capital projects. Annually, we supplement the revenue shortfall created by the capital projects by drawing from our undesignated funds, which is essentially our savings account or piggy bank. Based on a cursory projection of revenues and expenditures in capital projects, that fund will be relatively depleted in 2024. So here are the numbers behind that projection. You'll also note on that page there are some assumptions, such as revenues and expenditures based only on fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20 data. There is no rolling data behind that. We make the assumption that revenues increase 2% for fiscal year 2021 based on a forecast of a 2% increase in property values, and that's based on a discussion between the city manager and the property appraiser. Fiscal year 21-22 onward, property values forecasted to stagnate at 0% increase, but for planning purposes, we utilize a -1% decrease for conservative planning purposes. And number 4, the annual operating expenditures increase by approximately $20,000 per year, which is essentially a 3% increase in pay and benefits. That's the only one we could really nail down with a definite increase there. So far as mitigating strategies we need to look at reducing expenditures and increasing revenues. We need to take a closer look at grants and be more aggressive and proactive in seeking grants. We created a localized assessment tool with the undergrounding in Bellevue Estates Island, and we need to start thinking about how we can implement that process in other areas of the community. We need to talk about implementing usage fees. We've talked about stormwater, and if you look at the data in the Florida League of Cities website, that is typically the number one issue affecting all communities these days, and municipalities. And you can see at the bottom of this list, we look at adjusting taxes and perhaps floating a bond. So those are the numbers. So essentially, by fiscal year 2024, we've essentially depleted our piggy bank for capital projects as we see them right now. Okay. We don't have a reliable insight into capital and infrastructure requirements beyond them, nor have we put any critical thought into forecasting revenues and expenditures. We certainly have not had any thoughtful discussion of mitigation strategies other than tax adjustments, such as reducing expenditures. Yes, we've nibbled around the periphery of these expenditures, and in some cases declared victory and then gone home. Okay. We need to talk about usage fees, localized assessments, and others. I paraded some of the top expenditures. And these are just the top 4 line item expenditures. Pay and benefits, $657,000, which is 28.8% of our projected revenues. Law enforcement, $491,000 at 22%. Sanitation, $287,000 at roughly 13%. The debt service on this building, $209,000, which is 9% of our projected revenues. All in total, just those 4 line items add up to $1.6 million, which is basically 72% of our projected revenues. And that doesn't even add in the capital projects. So now let's just take a cursory examination of those things. Law enforcement, not likely to see much adjustment in that budget item, right? Sanitation, marginal, right? Debt service, non-negotiable. So the big low-hanging fruit on this tree right now is pay and benefits. And again, we have the capital improvements, which is, again, the expansions right there. So that's why I believe we really need to be looking beyond 2024, because we have some ideas of some of the recurring things, but I'm not sure we have a good grasp on the continuing preventative maintenance items, when they're due and what they cost. The council and city manager are juggling numerous issues. This budget deserves and requires a dedicated and systematic evaluation process, and I'm not sure this body has the time to focus, put that much emphasis and that much focus on just this item. So that's why I'm throwing it back out there, that I think we need to perhaps spool up a dedicated budget and finance committee or advisory committee to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, and also do the trend analysis, the forecasting, and the deep thought that goes into how we're going to address some of these shortfalls. Okay. Like our strategic plan, our budget process needs to tie all of this stuff together. It's time that we charter a dedicated budget and finance committee. The specifics should be addressed at the next budget work session. Thanks, Dan.
I just want to personally thank you. This is something that I had spotted a bit while back, suggested it, and the council did say let's defer on it. Having gone through this, and I want to tell you that we only get 2 or 3 people who come to the budget workshops, but I personally feel that we've had some excellent budget workshops. We're really getting into the detail. We're really working very hard to see where savings might be able to occur. But what was uncovered at the last one was just what the Vice Mayor is speaking about. We can kick this can down the road if we want. It's been kicked down the road for a while now, and we will run out of money for these capital projects. And I had estimated about 3 years. I think he's coming to about 3.5 years. But 3 years, 3.5 years, it doesn't matter. We're going to run out of money for capital projects. And then there's a choice. You could stop doing them, which apparently is what happened in the past, and that's certainly not a smart move given the condition of the infrastructure. Or we can raise taxes, and I'm not talking about a $40 a year tax increase. I'm talking about a huge tax increase. And I ran against raising taxes, and I'm still against raising taxes, and I'm not going to raise taxes unless it's the absolute last resort. There were viable situations and suggestions thrown out. There was a suggestion thrown out at our last budget meeting that I guess some people thought was funny. I didn't think it was funny at all. It was a very serious suggestion about how to eliminate that debt service, and it includes what we do with this building and whether this is an ongoing viable thing to keep. We need to take a hard look at every single thing in this city, the marina, this building, every revenue source. We're probably way under in terms of what we could be doing with grants. We're not pursuing them as strong as some other cities are. And this is where we have to ultimately go. And I think, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Vice Mayor. The Budget Committee is one way because I think the people on this board and the council here are working very, very hard right now. But this is almost a full-time job to go through this. There are 4 or 5 major areas. I can tell you law enforcement, I tried to see if there would be any competition to the sheriff. Clearwater's not interested in doing it, so we pretty much have the sheriff. He's going to raise us about 3.5% next year. Sanitation's a 5-year contract. We can't do much about that at this point. So the 2 things out here are paying benefits, which we're nibbling at, as he said, and then debt service. So we need to take a hard look at this. I think the Finance Committee is the way to go. Thank you. Council comments?
I just want to thank Glenn for all the hard work. I mean, I don't think anyone's taken the time to look out, in the future, to see where our reserves will be used up. Kind of fall back to why I haven't been in finance, figured that out. I'm glad you did that. Thank you, Glenn.
Council, Vice Mayor's asked that we include this at our next budget session, which is actually next Monday. Can we get an approval for that? Or do we have to do this with a second, or is this formal?
I'll make a formal
Okay.
motion then that we include a line item in the agenda for the next budget session to discuss chartering a budget and finance committee to take a global look at our budget.
Do we have a second?
Second.
My only question is, would we have the ultimate say after the budget comes up with their ideas? We can then meet and dissect and make sure that that's what we agree on as a council.
I believe
Advisor.
it's just an advisory recommendation.
Yeah, my only concern is, and I appreciate all the hard work you put in, and I agree, but my concern is that maybe past bad choices we've made, I don't want our city employees to be the ones who have to pay to make up that's what I'm concerned about. So that's why I just want to make sure that no matter what they recommend, we can look at it, dissect it, and make sure our employees aren't the ones who suffer.
I think these are ad hoc or advisory committees, so
That's fine.
we have council.
I just wanted to clarify.
That's my understanding. Any other council comments? Any citizen comments? Put it to a vote. All in favor? We have another item, person by person, Patty, or we do it all together?
No, consensus, right?
Together? All in
Yes.
favor? Opposed? Carries completely, 7-0. So that'll be included as a line item on our next budget session, which is the 8th. And everyone in the audience, please, this is where the hard work and heavy lifting is being done. I think we had 4 people here last time, so we were all here, so please feel free to come here and give us your input, because this is where we need it. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. Item 4 is approval of city council meetings, minutes from the May 20th, 2009 special session, the work session of May 20th, the June 30 City Council meeting minutes, the June 5th City Council budget workshop minutes, and the June 5th special City Council meeting minutes. So we've got 5 minutes that are being approved. Do we have any adjustments to that before we vote on it? I have some changes or some additions, so if you don't mind indulging me. Patty, you and I discussed this. On June 3rd, Monday, June 3rd, City Council meeting. Item 3, presentation from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. I asked Captain Minor, this was based on some erroneous information that was posted on the internet about the police being told to stand down and not enforce the law in this city. I asked him if he ever received an order from the City Council, the mayor, the vice mayor, or the city manager telling him to stand down, not enforce the law in this city, and instead enforce traffic. He told us no. I knew that was the answer because no one ever told him that. And I said, if we told you to not enforce the law, would you listen to us? And he said no. So if we could please add that. Monday, June 3rd, the City Council meeting, item 13, City Manager comments. Lynn Reeves had told us that he had made a presentation, in fact he had, across the street in Bel Air Shore, and I just asked if and he agreed that in the future, if he's making a presentation at another city council, it'd be nice if he would let the people on the board know. I would have liked to have been at that, to lend him support in any way, shape, or form that we could have, so if he could just let us know that, and he agreed. Also, on Monday, June 3rd, item 16, my comments, and it talked about how I spoke about the employees killed at the Virginia Beach Municipal Center. Not only did I acknowledge that horrible tragedy, but we had a discussion just a week before about the need for security, and I thought that that underscored the comments that I had made previously, because there was individuals that come forward in the city that didn't think it was quite as important as I did. And unfortunately, the folks in Virginia Beach said that something like that had never happened in their city, and that was the same quotes we were hearing a week earlier, so I wanted to highlight that to everyone. And finally, on June 5th at our work session, item 1, the council members, we had, before that, there was a pretty lively discussion at the council meeting with our city attorney, and the council had some issues with the way that I handled that. I had an issue, and it's not reflected in here, about how they handled that, and that was that essentially a point of order can be called by anyone on this council. I do not have to be the only person to enforce the rules of this city, and in fact I would expect that people would support me in calling a point of order when someone is out of line, and that individual, in my opinion, was out of line. Not only was he out of line, in my opinion, John Hanzig, 22nd Street, and it's not reflected in here, came forward. This man is a former Master Chief of the Navy, knows the points of order and knows Robert's Rules of Order quite well, and he unequivocally said that that the city attorney did not yield when a point of order was called, and that was in fact the case. And I appreciate his stepping forward and supporting me, and I'd like that reflected in this set of minutes. Other than that, I have no other adjustments to this, and if there's any other adjustments, we will then vote on the adjusted minutes. Council? There being no other adjusted minutes, or any adjustments to the minutes, we have motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. So moved. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous, 7-0. Consent agenda is approved. We're now to the regular agenda, and this is a consideration It's a long one here. Consideration of Resolution 2019-03. It's a resolution of the City Council, Bel Air Beach, approving the fiscal year 2019 non-ad valorem assessment roll for the Bellevue Estates Island Assessment Area, directing certification of the assessment roll to the Pinellas County Tax Collector and establishing an effective date. This, ladies and gentlemen, is about the undergrounding project and how the City Council, which had put the money out for this, is able to tax the individuals involved. I imagine this is yours, Mr. Reeves, or is this finance? This is your item?
Yes, Mayor. This is going to be an annual resolution. We've already not certified it totally, but we've submitted the first requirement on, it was the last week of June, we submitted it to the property appraiser for the coming year. And there were no changes other than a few that paid their balance off.
So what he's talking about is if they have, the people in that area who are affected by this have the opportunity of funding this, I think over 20 years, is it?
Yes.
20 years, or you can pay it all off at once, and I guess you can pay it off at any time you want, right?
No,
That's
we
one time.
only pay it off in April,
Okay,
and, because we have to make that payment every May.
okay. So that's where we're adjusting for people who may have paid it off. So with that, do we,
I've got one question. This is also the vehicle by which, once the project is completed, if there's been savings or reductions in cost, it's factored into this, and that's what alters the tax assessment for this?
Yes, this is a resolution that adopts the assessment roll, which in essence will be adjusted at the proper time that the project is over and we tally up all the costs.
do I have a motion to place this before the board or the council?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, we've kind of had a little discussion already, but does council have any discussion? Citizen discussion or questions? We vote individually?
Yes. Councilmember Aki,
Aye.
Councilmember Beam,
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis,
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley,
Aye.
Councilmember Swope,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn,
Aye.
Mayor Manzo.
Aye. The motion passes 7-0, and this will be signed off tonight, I believe, or, tonight? Yes. So this will be moved forward by the city manager then. Item 6 is to authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute an agreement for accounting services. As you just heard here, our finance officer, Melanie Crozona, last day is going to be this Friday. And of course, we're right in the middle of the budget process. It's a key time of the year, so this is what this one is all about. Do I have a motion to bring that before the council?
So moved.
A tie here, so Marv made the motion, second for Jody Shirley.
Yes.
Questions and comments from the council? Discussion?
I'd like to amend that motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate and strike the execute an agreement for the accounting services, unless it's, the execution, does that include bringing it before the council for approval, or is that a unilateral execution on your part?
Well, it would be, because we have a council meeting once a month, and this is something that's kind of expedient nature. So what I'm asking for is to negotiate and execute an agreement for accounting services, and it says in the background area, to provide accounting services in the interim, which I would say within a 6-month period, we would have to take this out to bid. So it would be an amount, I'm just going to throw a number out, it shouldn't exceed $30,000 for the 6-month period is what I'm saying.
Is it something we can do a special session at the work session? Is that a possibility? Do you think a week is enough time for you to put that together?
Well, not for going out to bid, because we will have to go out to bid. I've spoken to Jackie about this, and I can bring you something back once we have an agreement signed.
You would bring that back we have the next meeting is the 8th, so we can do that on the 8th, because I know Arizona's leaving on the 5th, right? So.
Yeah, I'll try, but I'm not going to guarantee it. We may have to have another special meeting. just for that.
Do we feel comfortable, I'm asking this to the council, do we feel comfortable in giving him parameters, 6 months, not to exceed a certain amount of money, so that, since time is somewhat of the essence, I think, right now. I don't mind calling a special meeting, it's your choice.
That's what I would prefer. My preference would be a special meeting, because I'd kind of like the parameters, because this is a pretty thin,
No, I understand that.
so I guess I'd like to see, once again, what are we paying for, and what are we getting, kind of run this through the grist mill, and make sure it's the best value for the city.
Vice Mayor, I'd just like to remind everyone that it's a holiday weekend, and we're asking a lot for him to work a deal between now and, what was it, the 6th and the 8th?
And the main reason for trying to move this forward is we're in the budget season, and there's deadlines we've got to meet over the next 3 months. So, but that's up to you.
With this said, Mr. Reese, you and I have spoken, you've already taken some substantial steps, I think, towards fulfilling this. You're not starting at zero today.
No.
You've already reached out to some individuals, spoke, I know, with, you have a proposal from Ms. Frizona, who
Right.
might become an independent contractor, and so we have some options here.
Right.
So would you, again, we want you to enjoy the holiday too, but do you feel comfortable coming to us on the 8th, or, because after Friday, you have no one, essentially?
That's my point. Actually, after tomorrow, I have no one.
So when do you think you would have this data?
I'll try to have something Monday. If I don't, we may have to push it in to later in the week and just have a short special meeting.
So you say Monday anyway?
Maybe. I'm not guaranteeing that, because it's got to, Jackie's going to have to help me write a contract and make sure it's legal and binding. So, there's more than just showing up Monday and saying, oh, well, this is what we got.
Do you foresee that you'll have the proposals by Monday?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's probably fair enough. We could then at that point give approval to execute a contract. There may be a contract review process, but at least we can.
Or even before that point, we can sit down as a body and discuss the parameters. We've got a lot on the plate tonight, but I'm not ready to abrogate my responsibilities to the city because it's a holiday. We'll do the best we can to schedule around it, but I'm certainly willing to devote the time necessary to talk about the length of the contract and what the maximum ceiling is.
Right.
Even before you start the straw man for the contract.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, I wasn't referring to us, I was referring to the firms.
Right.
To be interviewed.
Okay. We'll shoot for Monday. If it doesn't work out, we may have to do it later in the week.
Let me try and clean this up. So you had an amendment. Do you want to withdraw your amendment and maybe move it as to table this until we have this meeting on Monday?
Okay, postpone this until Monday.
So we'll withdraw the amendment. We have a motion to withdraw the amendment and table this. Do we have a second on both?
So moved. Second.
So now we're moving on the amended, well, we have to vote on the amended agreement, the amendment, which is to table this. So, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes 7-0, so this will be tabled until our next meeting, which is the 8th, and then we'll address it then. And just one point, I know you and I have spoken about this, Mr. City Manager. I want to know when we're going to be planning to bid this out. I have no problem if it was like a 6-month thing. I think that's fine for an emergency, but the key is to get everything bid in due course. I'm sorry.
May I address that issue?
Yes. My bad. I should have asked if there was a citizen comment, so we're going to put it in here, and if we need to revote after this, we will.
Rudy Davis, 612 Belle Isle Avenue. The city finance officer is a charter officer. I would like to ask the city attorney, I don't want to put you on the spot now, but would you research whether or not council actually has the authority not to replace the finance officer, since the charter can only be changed by the residents through a referendum? And then advise council whether or not you think they have that authority, not to replace the finance officer. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Counsel, legal counsel, did you want to, I know this area, I believe, has been addressed by our city manager and yourself, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you wish to address it now.
There's been some discussion, I'm going to review it with Paul, but the same as the city attorney, that you can, I believe you can have an outside contractor as a charter officer. I don't believe there is anything in the charter or ordinances that requires the person to be a full-time employee.
Would we be able to get an answer on that also for Monday, because that will help us then to know if we can make that decision?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't think that changes the vote here, but does anybody?
I have a question.
A question.
The answer will be a written opinion, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Does everybody stand by the vote that was just made to table this until Monday?
Yes.
Is everybody in favor? Aye? Aye. All right, so it remains tabled. Thank you. Okay, so now we move on to item number 7. Authorize the city manager to execute assignment of the financial and auditing services agreement. This is also from our city manager, brought up. We've had a merger with our accounting firm, our auditing firm that does our annual audit, which is coming up for September of this year. This is a contract that will end in September of 2020. So in terms of bidding out contracts, every contract gets bid out under our new procedure and under best practices when it comes up. Now, we do have the right to bid this out upon 30 days notice, but we weren't looking to bust contracts. So basically, we have a merger of the two firms. It's my understanding, and I think there's individuals here tonight that will explain to us that they're actually going to be going with this new firm. So I think there's a continuity. But with that, this is the city manager's thing. We have to get a motion first to get it before the council for the discussion. So first, do we have a motion to bring this matter before council?
So moved.
Second. Okay, now, comments from the council and
Yeah.
city manager.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, this is basically a transfer. It's a firms that are merging, and Janina Richard Christine, who's here tonight, they came and spoke to us, I believe it was like the 17th of June, and told us that they were merging effective today. And they are going to be working with the same firm. So I sent that information. They sent us a letter. I sent that information to the city attorney, and the contract, which is all included in your book, and an addendum to the contract that authorized us to assign this current contract to the new firm.
Before we move, just one second, because I have to go through city council comments first, and we'll come right to you, so stay right where you're at, please. Any other city council comments before we go to our auditor here? Sir?
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, and certainly Lynn, and city attorney as well, because a lot of work was done behind the scenes in terms of writing the addendum. We are merging with a much larger firm. The intent is to provide a lot of backroom assistance that we have not heretofore had. It also provides a lot of background from the standpoint of capabilities, from electronic data processing, from cyber concerns, and many other issues which are totally departmentalized in this large firm. They have multiple offices in the state of Florida and in the state of Tennessee. The name of the firm is Saltmarsh, Cleveland and Gund. The office that we work out of is the Tampa office. Their home office is in Pensacola. We are not going to be going to Pensacola. Okay. It's a lovely office, but our clients are in this tri-county area, and so we're working out of Tampa, as I said, and the support is already in place. We've gotten all of the things that you would expect for a new crew, and we're melding in. We will be following more strict, or not so strict, but the rules and the requirements of the new larger firm, which, as you might expect, are greater than what we have experienced in the past. They'll still be in conformity with Government Finance Officers Association, the American Institute, and the other requirements that we have followed up until this point for all of our clients. As you know, we are right now we're specialists, I'm afraid. We don't do banks, we don't do insurance companies, we don't do construction companies. We do not-for-profits, public pension plans, and cities, and public fire districts, all of which, as you may be aware, are in this county as well. So I'm open to certainly any questions. The transition here is intended to be smooth for all of our clients, including the city of Bel Air Beach. In all cases, and it is totally dependent. We've got 42 clients, 42 clients that we have to deal with, and every one of them has an attorney. As you might expect, each attorney has made a decision whether the contract will be renewed, whether the form of it will, what it will take. The contracts are all in existence already. In this case, the addendum was elected to be used as opposed to an assignment, but this was our approach to all of our clients is we will do whatever our board desires based on advice from counsel.
Mr. Christini, right?
Yes, sir.
I did have a question for you. I'm a fellow CPA from New Jersey. I'm inactive right now. But I do know that in the accounting world, a lot of times when there's mergers, the way these things are structured is that the existing partners and sometimes the existing staff has a certain period where they work for the new firm, and that's kind of under contract, and then they do the transition, and then they kind of go off into the sunset. Is that what we have here, or do you expect that yourself and the other individuals that have been servicing us are going to be continuing?
We've got, I have a two-part. I've got 3 years and then 6 years. Within that time frame, it's like any employment position. If you either, I or my employer become disenchanted, there could be, so I'm not going to promise anything to anyone, but right now that's the agreement. And everybody's moving from Janine to Aaron and Bart, all the way to our typist Barbara, who is, as you may know, she's world class. So there's no intent to leave any of our clients in the lurch.
When you say 3 and 6 years, is it 3 years contractual, 6-year renewal? Is that the way it's structured?
Yes.
Okay. Council, any questions? Citizens? There being no questions from the citizens, close the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll move this for a vote at this point in time. This is to authorize the city manager to execute the assignment of the financial and auditing services agreement. A copy of that was provided to us as item 7. Legal counsel, that's been reviewed by you and you're satisfied with it, right? Okay. I think other than that, then, Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Aki?
Aye.
Councilmember Beam?
Aye.
Councilmember Gaddis?
Aye.
Councilmember Shirley?
Aye.
Councilmember Swope? Vice Mayor Gunn? Mayor Manzo?
Aye. The motion passes 7-0. City manager, please execute that. Thank you. Oh, the fun part of the night. Here we go. You okay? Good. All right. This is the consideration of the appointment of the Park and Recreation Board alternate member to member. We have a situation, there's been some change on the Park and Recreation Board, and we have an individual, let's see what we have actually. We have 2 individuals that are up for consideration. We have the resignation of Mr. Greg Moran, and we have Rick Schrock and Berg Serafian. Both of them were appointed last time to alternate positions, and now one of them will be filling Mr. Moran's position. Are either of those individuals here tonight? Okay, so then the first thing that we'll need is a motion to get this before the council.
So moved.
Second. Okay, now we'll have council discussion, if any. There's no one here to make that presentation, so
The one Parks and Recreation Board meeting that I've attended lately, Mr. Schock was there. He's shown a history of being engaged with the city. He served on several boards, and he was thoroughly engaged with the Parks and Recreation. He's got a lot of experience in some other areas, in the church area with public fundraisers and stuff like that. So I certainly would throw some reference and recommendations his way.
I was also at that meeting, and so was Councilmember Beam, and I'll speak for myself. I saw the same thing, Vice Mayor. He had a very positive, can-do attitude. There wasn't one topic that came up that he didn't say, let's get it done now, whatever I could do to help. This is a man that they were talking about, I understand, in a prior meeting, and there was a situation, I guess we had a little overlooked situation. We had some garbage pails that were overflowing. He volunteered to go out on his own time and empty our garbage pails. I mean, this is above and beyond what any citizen has to ever do. So very, very impressive with what I've seen and what I've heard about. Any other council comments? Citizen comments? Oh, it's that ballot time. Madam Clerk. We have a new ballot. Last time if you were here, you know we had some issues with the ballot, but I know Patty Gentry's worked on a real good one this time for us. We're voting for one now, right? Yes, okay. Just making sure.
Councilmember Aki, Mr. Sarafian. Councilmember Beam, Mr. Sarafian. Mayor Manzo, Mr. Schock. Councilmember Gaddis, Mr. Schock. Vice Mayor Gunn, Mr. Schock. Councilmember Shirley, Mr. Schock. Councilmember Swope, Mr. Schock.
5 for Mr. Schock, 2 for Mr. Sarafian.
Okay, so Mr. Schock is going to be the permanent member on the board. I congratulate him, and I see we have the chairman of the board of the Parks and Recreation Board. You'll let him know. Thank you. Item 9 is the consideration of reappointments or appointment to the Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment has 2 individuals, permanent members. Patty, correct me, I know we went back and forth a little bit on this one. We have 2 members that were permanent members that are up for re-election or renewal at this point in time. And they've expressed an interest in coming back, along with several of the alternate members that are now looking to step up into the permanent positions. Did I say that right?
Yes. 2 alternates and 1 member, or 1 person that has applied that is not yet a member.
Right.
Okay,
So we have, if I'm correct here, we have Dawn Fletcher, right?
correct?
And she's the existing individual right now. We also have Kelly Henry, she's also the existing individual, so they're up for the reappointment. We have John Hayes, he's the newcomer who's looking to get on the board. And then I believe we have a couple board members that were alternates that are looking to become permanent. One is Josh Hollis, I believe.
Correct.
And then is there another one?
Carol Conry.
Okay.
And Mayor, I sent out an email, and it went out very late after I spoke with one of the alternates, and I'm not sure everyone got it, but I put it at your place, so. It had the information you had requested on the others.
So let's do this. Let's get first the motion before the board for the consideration reappointment to the Board of Adjustment. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second, Mr. Gaddis. Okay, now it's open for discussion. So, Ms. Gentry, we have the information here. I had made a request of you on Friday for the attendance figures for anyone who's seeking appointment or stepping up. I think it's very important. This board, for the individuals in the audience, has sometimes difficulty in getting a quorum. And when they have difficulty getting a quorum, they have to go outside to a special master. So I think if you're going to serve, this is my opinion, if you're going to serve on this board, attendance is very, very important. They don't have a lot of meetings, they only had 4 in 18 months, so it's important that people be there. And we have their voting records, so I don't know if everyone has that, but Madam Clerk, maybe if you can just give us the totals for everyone, so everyone can kind of have their notes in front of them complete. And then, I don't know how many individuals we have comments, but if any of the individuals are here, maybe they want to address us first before the council comments and questions.
Okay, so go ahead with that.
Yes, please, if you want to go ahead with the attendance, yes.
Okay. Ms. Fletcher, of the 18 months, attended 2 of the 4 meetings. Ms. Henry, 3 of the 4 meetings. Ms. Conry, as an alternate, voted at 3 of 3 meetings, and the other one they didn't need her. So 3 of the 4. And then they haven't had any hearings since Mr. Hollis was appointed, and of course, Mr. Hayes hasn't been to a meeting.
Do we have individuals here? I know Mr. Hollis is here. Okay, we have 3 individuals, so, and I assume you all want to address us? I'm seeing a yes, 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 and Mr. Hollis, yes. So, council, we can have comments now, or we can, if you want to go slightly out of order, we can have them address us first and then comments or questions directly to them. It's whatever your pleasure. Have them address us first?
Yes.
Okay, please. I don't know who wants to go first, but ladies first. Here we go.
Good evening, thank you for allowing me to speak. I was appointed to the Board of Adjustment in August of,
I'm sorry, your name?
Carol Conway.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah. Being the only female, I figured we kind of figure that one.
Well, we have Dawn Fletcher on,
Yeah, no, I
and Ms. Henry, so.
Them is the alternate. I was appointed to the Board of Adjustment in August of 2013 as a full voting member, serving with Ms. Bean there, and I don't know what's here, but we didn't have a lot of meetings, although I believe I was present for each of the meetings that we did have. And in 2018, there was an ad hoc committee that was formed, which was the Code Review Committee, which I also believe is an extremely important committee. It was determined that you could not serve on both. So I was told I could resign from the Board of Adjustment, serve on the ad hoc review committee, and then when that disbanded, I could reapply for the Board of Adjustment, which is exactly what I did do. As Ms. Gentry has quoted, I have attended any of the meetings I was needed for since that time. I do think that, again, the Board of Adjustments is a very, very important board. We have a great community here, it's a premier community, and I don't think that we need to have people going away from what our ordinances are. So I would appreciate being considered for the permanent position again.
Thank you. Do we have, I think we'll just, if you don't mind, if we have questions, it'd be a lot easier if you ask them while you're standing there. Council, have any questions?
I have a question. This is a Board of Adjustments, and you're hearing variance requests.
Yes.
So you just made a statement that our residents should not, they should adhere to the code and not vary from that. So if that's your opinion, would you be open-minded?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry. I don't mean that in every single instance. If there is a specific hardship or something very unique to a variance, by all means, I think that should be considered. But in general, if people just want to do whatever they want to do, we would no longer have a premium beach community. And so again, I think the Board of Adjustments is a very important committee to have for all of the citizens. But yes, by all means. And I think I've done that in some of the requests where I have voted in favor. I think the last one I voted against was someone wanted a variance of a 25-foot setback and to make it a 15-foot setback on a corner property. That obviously would have jeopardized the safety of others. So that to me just made common sense. You're going to not accept that.
Sure.
I witnessed your engagement on the code committee. You did a great job, and you brought up some great perspectives. And the one thing I see, and would you just give me your perspective on this, is you don't live in a single dwelling home, right? You live in a condo?
That's correct.
So do you have the perspective to be able to address those issues that people bring forward when they're talking about property issues or seawalls and that kind of thing?
Yes, I think I do. Obviously, I've owned a single-family home in the past, so I obviously have that perspective as a property owner of a single-family house.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Connery, I just would like to have you elaborate. Your resume and your application was placed on our pile of stuff that we got today, and this is my pile, okay? I didn't get to read all of this in the 20 minutes that I was here. I'm looking at this now. You have an outstanding background, and I just thought maybe you might want to just tell us a little bit about your background, because I'm looking here and you've got FBI National Academy and you were a lieutenant in the police force. Could you please, just so everyone knows your background, because everyone might not have seen this, if you could just give us 30 seconds of your 30 years here.
Well, actually, it was 42 years, Mr. Mayor. I was 22 years with NYPD. I retired there as a lieutenant. I came down here and accepted a position with the Florida Attorney General's office in their Medicaid Fraud Control Unit. Spent 20 years there, retired as a captain. So I obviously deal with laws, ordinances, attorneys, over the 42 years. So, and yes, the FBI Academy was a wonderful experience.
And how many total years have you been on the Board of Adjustment now?
It was from 13 to 18 as a full member, and then as an alternate from September of 18 till now.
Any other questions on council? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have two other gentlemen. Mr. Hollis.
Joshua Hollis, 1147 7th Street. I want to thank you previously for appointing me to the alternate position. We haven't had any meetings since that appointment. My background, if you remember, is in computers at USF. I'm currently a grad student in cybersecurity, working on my master's. After next week, I'll be 50% complete with a 4.0 GPA right now. I wanted to make sure I get that on record before my next final.
Good luck.
In January of 2017 is when I met with the builder to build the home that we're currently in. And the builder gave me a floor plan of a house that he did before, and he said, we can just raise this up. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. So I went home and got my wife's big sketch pad and started with a blank canvas, and I drew out the dimensions of our property, put in the setback requirements, and I started with a blank sheet and drew out our floor plan to make sure that we had what we desired, which a lot of you have seen in our home. We had a large front porch with the large staircase that comes down that requires a lot of room. So I had to make sure that we were within the setback requirements. I basically told the builder where to set the home, and then also the entire floor plan I designed ourselves. And I told you this last time, so it's kind of a refresher, but thank you for your consideration. Do you have any questions?
Council, questions? Mr. Hollis, I do have a question for you. Attendance, we're highlighting over here. How do you see, again, we have no background because you haven't had a meeting yet, so how do you plan with regard to attendance? Do you think your attendance is going to wind up being in the future here?
Well, I am a full-time resident. I'm not a snowbird. I make it a priority to make any and all meetings, unless there's an emergency, obviously. I'm dedicated to the city. to the position.
I just want to point out that he does come to all of the main meetings and also the work sessions too, and even the budget workshops, which is very impressive for a resident to do, so thank you for coming.
Anything else, council? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, John Hayes, 3210 Gulf Boulevard, Bel Air Beach. I was here several meetings ago and didn't receive enough votes for the Board of Adjustment, but that's fine. I do not want to usurp anybody that you feel is qualified for the board, and I would just tell you that I'm available if you need to fill a position. I do not want to take somebody's place that's serving the city and you're happy with. I will only reiterate what I might have said at the last meeting. I was a real estate developer for 40 years in the Midwest, multifamily housing. That was my life and my work and my career. I know about real estate, a lot about real estate. And I was a single-family homeowner for 50 years. So I'm retired, attendance shouldn't be a problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest and your willing to work with us. Appreciate anyone coming forward on this, and win or lose, keep coming forward. I mean, there's a position, there's a lot of boards here, and so hopefully you'll be successful tonight. Council, questions?
I have one.
Sure.
This might be directed more towards the city manager, but can you tell us what the charter states as far as a person that's on reappointment versus bringing in someone new? When don't they have like 60 days to request the reappointment? And then unless there's an issue with either, currently two of them, either party, then they automatically get that. Is that correct with the charter, or did I read it incorrectly?
They have the opportunity to ask for reappointment if they've been on the board. And traditionally, if they've asked for reappointment, and I'm saying traditionally, they have been reappointed. But that's still up to the city council.
Legal counsel, do you concur with that?
I was just looking quickly to see if there was any, I'm not seeing anything that specifically addresses.
Do you want a
Just wanna look at
do you want a 5-minute recess to check it?
Give me, I just need 2 minutes.
You got it. Thank you.
If you could, then you do it just to show that it's digging, but I wanted to put that to request. There really is nothing in the provisions that addresses whether somebody has to request reappointment or anything concerning current members and their reappointment. I think you have complete discretion as to reappointment as a city council.
I located it actually under the Parks and Rec information, is where I seen that about the reappointment.
Okay, we're doing Board of
Parks and Rec
But I didn't know if
Advisory
it
Board.
applied to all of them.
Board of Adjustment is section 6.03, I believe, right, legal counsel?
Yes.
That's what I'm looking at, and I believe Councilman Swope, that is a special rule for Parks and Recreation. They have that rule. This one does not, so
Right, and I didn't see anything under 601 either.
I didn't either. So we'll vote for the two candidates of choice based on legal counsel and city managers. Do we have any citizen comments support against these nominations?
Jim Vanscoy, 7th Street, Bella Beach. I would like to see the board appoint Josh Hollis as a regular member. He has continuously showed that he wants to be involved in this city. Most certainly has enough background and dedication that I have noticed, and I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Any council comments? We will go to the ballot. Have you had a chance to adjust it for the 5 members? Thank you. We're voting for 2 now, correct?
Correct.
All right.
I do have a question, because we're voting for a,
Permanent, 2 permanent.
2 permanent
Yes.
seats, that's it, okay.
Do you have an extra one of these by any chance? Oh, you do, thank you. I just want to tally your vote.
Councilmember Beam, Ms. Conry, and Ms. Fletcher. Mayor Manzo, Mr. Hayes, and Mr. Hollis. Councilmember Swope, Ms. Fletcher, and Ms. Henry. Councilmember Shirley, Ms. Conry, and Mr. Hollis. Councilmember Gaddis, Mr. Hayes, and Ms. Henry. Vice Mayor Gunn, Ms. Conry, and Mr. Hollis. And Councilmember Aki, Ms. Conry, and Mr. Hollis.
Ms. Conry received 4 votes, Ms. Fletcher 2, Mr. Hayes 2, Ms. Henry 2, and Josh Hollis 4. So it would be Hollis and Conry.
Congratulations.
Now, there, just FYI, Mayor, there will be now that
An alternate spot.
vacancy. So, I mean, do you want to select that tonight?
We can do that tonight. I would just as soon do it tonight, right?
Yeah, so you've got 3 people, Ms. Fletcher, Mr. Hayes, and Ms. Henry.
Henry, Fletcher, Hayes, and Henry for the alternate. So let's do this officially. Well, we need 2 things. We need 3 things. We have to amend the agenda. We can do that at this stage of the game. Is that permissible?
Yeah,
No one's telling me no. So amend the agenda to add this appointment on this alternate so that we can fill this board. And then have a motion to vote on these 3 individuals. Motion second, and then the vote. So first, we have a motion to amend this agenda to consider the alternate spot that has just been vacated by Mr. Hollis. And we have a second? Second. Council comments? All in favor? Aye. Citizen comments. Council vote, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried 7-0, so we now have that, this election on our agenda, amended agenda. Now we have a motion to consider Don Fletcher, John Hayes, and Kelly Henry to fill the alternate position that has just been vacated by Mr. Hollis.
So moved.
We need a second?
Second.
Council comments. We're not going to, citizen comments? And back to a council vote.
These are the same ballot, so it'll be what you said.
So we're voting for one of number 2, 3, or 4, right? Yes, as an alternate. So there's, number 1 is out, number 5 is out on this ballot.
Councilmember Beam, Ms. Fletcher. Councilmember Aki, Mr. Hayes. Mayor Manzo, Mr. Hayes. Councilmember Swope, Ms. Henry. Councilmember Shirley, Mr. Hayes. Councilmember Gaddis, Mr. Hayes. Vice Mayor Gunn, Mr. Hayes.
Mr. Hayes, 5 votes, Ms. Fletcher, 1 vote, and Ms. Henry, 1 vote.
Congratulations, Mr. Hayes. Perseverance pays off. All right. We have a quarterly city board reports. There's no board of adjustment or planning and zoning board report, but we do have a park and recreation board report from June Van Scoy, who's the chairman of that. We attended a meeting about 2 weeks ago. It was quite something to see what the park and recreation board is up to, so I think we're going to hear from her tonight about that.
Good evening. The Park and Recreation Board for the City of Bel Air Beach has been working very hard on an event agenda and a budget for the year. As you can see in front of you in the report I submitted, as follows. The Fall Festival is scheduled for February 21st, and one adjustment that, I'm sorry, September 21st. The one adjustment that we might have, and we had to send it out to my board, we have an entertainment group coming, so I want to make sure I get this date correct with you all. An entertainment group coming that is willing to entertain the whole 4 hours, if we can do the 28th instead. So the date either will be the 21st or the 28th. I'm waiting to hear back from my board. Patty, did we hear? We only heard back from 2 people so far. So otherwise, the 21st, as it stands, would be, I have 2.5 hours filled of music otherwise, so of the 4 hours. Anyhow, October 26th, we have planned a Halloween trunk or treat with a costume parade from the kids, and it'll just be, they will parade up and down this street in their costumes, and citizens can bring their cars and, and candy to hand out to the children. The street will be blocked off, and we're talking about an hour and a half of programming for that. Holiday party is set with Santa for December 7th here at the City Hall. Other events planned is a car show that a lot of gentlemen in the city showed a lot of interest in doing, so we want to make sure we get that on our schedule. But the most current upcoming event, of course, is the Fall Festival. Our budget for this event is $2,000. Our total budget expected for the year is $6,000. Let me break down to you what this event consists of. As you know, we are going to have the fire department, the sheriff department. The sheriff department's going to do a K-9 demonstration for us. They're going to bring their, what is that, assault vehicle, their tank for us. We're going to have the CERT team here. Emergency management's going to set up a table. The fire department's going to do blood pressure checks. Sunstar's going to do an ambulance display. Those things that we factored in are free. We don't have to pay for, along with the music. The only expenditures we would have for this event is anything that the city manager should come up with at the last minute. Of course, the hot dogs, the chips, the cookies, the soda, water. We're going to keep it very simple, very basic with this being the city's first event. We also want to do a dunk tank and then have some kind of bounce house or slide for the kids. Now, in that dunk tank, we're hoping that we will get the council members to volunteer to be in that, and maybe the mayor.
You can use an armored car to take
Just
some money
remember-
away if I go.
One of our goals with this group is to be completely self-funded, not from the city. Okay, that is our goal. That is the goal that I've reached out to my members and said, but we have to have a line item. We have to have a budget. Okay, so it has to be on the city's records. I've worked with a organization that's willing to sponsor us, but I have to have the city's approval before I can make a letter to them to get the sponsorship. It's a corporate sponsor that would pay for this whole event. We have worked diligently on breaking down all the prices of these things, looking at the safety aspects, from blocking up the street, only allowing parking for overflow from the city to one side of the street, having designated areas for said parking. If the fire department is here, we don't have to hire. If the sheriff department is here doing a display, we do not have to put money out for a sheriff to be here. So that if we have an ambulance here, should there be an emergency, and they're doing a display, we don't have to pay for that service. So these are all the aspects that I thought of, and our board thought of when we were getting these displays and these people to volunteer for our event. I met with the city manager, and I have met with the Kyle, Public Relations. Community Service, I'm sorry, on the safety and how we would block off the streets and so forth so that the children are where cars are. So that would be the first and most concern of the board, was to make sure that kids aren't where cars are. So anyhow, with that being said, again, we are trying to be completely self-funded. Okay, we are going to be reaching out to businesses in the community. We are going to be drafting a letter that all board members will be presenting. They will not be allowed to obligate the city in any shape or form. And this letter is all they will be able to hand to the people in order to get these donations. I've spoken to the city manager, and my board has asked me to create a document with him, and then we would have the city attorney to look at this document. Now here's the other thing that our board at any time has discussed. If we can't afford something, we're not going to have it. So if we do not come up with enough money, then something will be curtailed. Okay? So with that in mind, I hope that you will approve this event and all the other events that are on the agenda, and also approve our budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, some questions, comments?
I have a couple. You stated you want to be self-funded. Who would control those funds?
The city. All checks are required to go made out strictly to the city.
How many streets will need to be blocked?
The streets aren't going to be blocked, it'll be one side of the street that'll be utilized. We don't want to tie up the streets. And the streets in question would be 9th Street and all the cul-de-sac streets leading up to City Hall. And it would only be street parking on one side of the street. The next event, there'll only be parking on the other side of the street. So it's not a hindrance to both sides of the street at one time, or any one certain neighbor having to deal with that. So we would alternate that.
Well, the streets that are going to be affected, will the neighbors be notified ahead of time that there's going to be parking out there?
Absolutely. It's actually in the city code that we are responsible for notifying the residents of all the events and the aspects of it.
How long will it take to draw up the legal letter on that? And this question's addressed to our attorney. Don't you have to draw up some kind of a donation or contribution type letter so that we make sure we meet all the legalities?
Okay, I'm gonna let Lynn answer that.
Okay.
I'm in the process of putting together a sponsorship policy, and I'll have Jackie look at it after I get it drafted. And that will cover us, I think, as far as accepting donations. And I made it clear to the Park and Rec Board that, all the funds have to come to the city. We'll be the ones that have to purchase the stuff. And I think they understand that this is a volunteer thing. I have 7 people now, including me. I don't have the staff to do all of this stuff. So there's going to be some, the volunteers, and they've assured me they'll get the volunteers. So that's where we're at right now.
What about insurance? Do we need to look at that to make sure that the building and the grounds?
Well, we have our
for
own
any type of event?
liability insurance. If there's alcohol, that's a different story. Because I noticed on this list, possibly beer and wine, you have to get a license for that, and you would have to have liquor liability insurance.
And that's why there's a little bit of I want to say, play in the budget that we're asking for this event, because I've reached out to Bay Area Distributor. I'm trying to get them to donate some beer. If they donate it, then that would factor in the cost of us putting out for the licensing for that. That is actually one of the fundraising things that we are looking for to help keep this self-funded. That and the dunk tank and the other thing is to keep the board self-funded funded for the events. When you spoke about the liability for the city, one of the things that I addressed early on with the board and the city manager was creating a document also that releases the city. So if anybody brings equipment or sets up a table or anything like that and comes here to the city on our property, that they have to sign a release holding us harmless from the liability. And we're going to create that as well.
I'm at ground zero of this, and I hear it every day, but I'm glad the citizens are hearing what I'm seeing, and seeing this challenge that I made back in March come to life. We like to say that we're a premier city. I think we're working towards that goal at this point in time. This is the kind of thing that makes you a premier city. This is a cultural event. It's not a garage sale. This is something that really puts your city on the map. And you and I know we go to mayor's council meetings, we go to Big C meetings every single month, and the other mayors have events every single month without fail. Big cities and small cities. And this is the kind of thing that, is something that we do for our residents. It brings the city and community together. This has been done successfully in the past. This was done in the past before. I believe they called it City Fest, and it was very successful. It got incredibly successful. So it's something that I'm very proud of you and the committee of what you're doing here. You have my tremendous support for this. I think it's totally in the spirit of what I was looking for. It's way beyond what I ever intended. So I think this is wonderful. It's very well thought out, and I know you've covered pretty much most of the different areas of concern that I think most people have on this. So excellent job.
Can I ask one question, just a clarification really? I mean, what you're pitching here is, the budget is basically seed money, and at the end of the day, it's cost neutral to the city because you foresee paying the city back.
I don't foresee it costing the city any money.
I just want to clarify.
And again, I was very upfront with my board right from the start, that if we don't have the funds, we don't do it. That's because we don't have it as a city. I realize that, but I have to have a line item, and I have to have a budget in there. You know, that's just part of doing it. So.
With that said, I mean, historically and even this year, there has been money set aside for city events. So it is something that the city has said that, you know, as part of the overall good of the city, it's an event, you know, the city can sponsor certain events. I'm certainly not advocating that we sponsor, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars for events, but, you know, if this is something that the city has to wind up footing the bill for a few $100s, that's just part of what you do for the city sometimes. So it's not something, I mean, if it's not perfectly revenue neutral, I don't know that, in my opinion, it wouldn't be fatal. This is something cities do. We went to the Indian Shores Memorial Day celebration. That was funded by the city. No one was asked to pay a nickel for it, and there was chicken and beer and wine and soda and military honor guard, and it was an extremely beautiful event that they did for their citizens, and about 50, 60 people partook in that. So I thought it was very well done.
Yes, June, thank you for all your work, and the committee, they've done a great job, starting with nothing, because we've had no community involvement on a lot of these types of things. I attend a lot of Bel Air's events, because they have great kids events over there, and they always have a small charge for whatever they're serving. You know, it may be $1 or $2, whatever, but so that offsets. It's amazing when you buy in bulk how inexpensive it is to feed people. So, you know, I wouldn't, when you're thinking of budgets, that's also an option. And maybe local vendors just have the line, go to Bellavino and have, you know, potentially see if they would be interested in serving just like they do in Bel Air.
Okay, sounds good.
But thank you so much. Good work.
June, you're looking for us to give you the blessing to go forward at this point tonight?
Yes, please. We can't create the document to go out and get the donations. We can't do any of that until I get this approved. That's where we're at right now. We just so you know, the sponsor is preliminary. I told them that until I got council approval, I couldn't obligate the city. You know, the things that we got in place, I can't obligate the city until we get the approval from here. So it's all tentative until this happens.
Parks and Recreation Board is an advisory committee, so this is their advice, and now it's up to us to either heed it or not.
So I would like to make a motion to give the Parks and Recreation Board the approval to move forward with their sponsorship letter so that they are able to proceed with the scheduled events they'd like to do. Second.
And that's with the full agenda also, so they can move forward with this September 21st to 28th event.
Is that what we're trying to?
I think so. I think that's what you need, right?
Yeah, basically everything I presented to you is what we're trying to, so we can get those things rolling. Because quite frankly, say for instance, when I'm working on getting a sponsor for the Fall Festival, you'd be surprised somebody said, well, I can't sponsor something that big. And then I said, well, I have this event going on. Would you be willing to be a part sponsor of this? So it's so we can promote the other events at the same time.
So the motion would be amended to approve the events as planned and approve giving you authorization to move forward with drafting a letter along with Lynn and city attorney for sponsorship.
And the liability form as well, please.
Release,
sorry.
Okay, so the event, what you've been speaking about tonight, this agenda. Okay, to move forward with this agenda. So we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Council discussion? We've
Can I brief?
Absolutely.
I'm a little concerned you don't have any policy generally covering this area. I'm really trying to think through it. I think most attorneys would probably feel the same, Mr. Manzo. I don't have great, I don't think a lot happens by getting a release form. They're not very protective of anybody. They're
good to have.
They're a piece of paper. They're a piece of paper. So I just kind of want to make sure that I'd like some real clarity on what you are moving forward here in your motion, for one. It was not as clear to me what exactly you were approving at this point.
This is to move them forward on these 3 events, the Fall Festival, September 21st or 28th or whenever, October 26th, the Halloween trunk or treat event, which is a parents type thing, and December 7th or approximately there, a holiday party for the children with Santa Claus, so that they can get moving on this, to create whatever necessary forms so they can go out and get their sponsors, work with you, work with the city manager, but basically so that we can tell them, stop talking about it, go forward and start doing it.
They can move forward, but they still will bring all of this back to you for a final approval.
This is the approval to let them go forward.
Well, you have to approve the sponsorship policy, and that has not been completed yet. So I understand what you're saying. You're telling us to go ahead and move forward. But at this point, that's really just a consensus of council. It's not a motion that's needed. There is no, I can tell you right now, there is no, in this fiscal year's budget, there's no event budget in this fiscal year. But we'll figure that out.
Did you not say to me in one of the council meetings that you had some money?
That's it, yeah, we'll work that out.
Okay.
But in next year's budget, there's $2,000 in there, so are you telling me to increase that budget line item?
We have to discuss it at the next budget meeting.
Okay, so that is in the next budget.
Right.
So, okay, so.
This is to get them going, and regarding, and again, June Van Scoy, please jump in here. I know this because I was there when we got this sponsor. This was for the 4th of July picnic that we're not having. These folks are ready to come forward, but they've got a 6-week lead time, so we'll
get this work.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can't, if we want to make this happen for September, we have to get our policy in line, but these folks they were good, and hopefully they'll still be good. I think they still will. This
As
is,
of last week, they were still good.
this is small change for them, so.
So we can say we're moving forward with reserving them, and then we'll do the legal paperwork and get
Yes.
it approved
Right.
once it's
Absolutely.
done. I just want to clarify for myself.
And legal counsel, I'm, having run in multiple races, road races, having done multiple car shows, I know they're not sometimes worth the paper they're printed on, but everybody makes you fill them out, so let's at least have them, because if something happens, at least it's Exhibit 1 saying you did release us, and, an attorney's gonna challenge it, but at least we have something that's better than nothing. And it's standard form, those are standard. We have a motion, we have a second, I believe, right? Council discussion. Citizen discussion. There being no citizen discussion, we'll go to vote individually, or do you want to do it in summary on this one? We can go in summary, right? It's not a resolution.
Consensus?
Summary?
I just need a clarification of what we're voting on, motion. I understand the concept, we're basically saying we want to move forward with this. There's still some things you need to give us a roadmap of how it's going to be done, give us the paperwork, and then we need to obligate some funds for this.
To be done during the budget.
So at this point, we're just taking a vote that conceptually, we want to move forward on this, and what's pending is the
Move
housing.
forward and reserve the sponsors that are willing to give us donations, and then we'll work out the legal paperwork later and agree on it later. But there's that 6-week window, so we need to say it's this date, reserve it, and then we'll.
Wouldn't we hold, I'm sorry, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Okay, let's clarify this then. So, the way I'm seeing it, you tell me, what are you looking for? I want you to sell us because this is what you're gonna get. Or not.
Okay, what I need first and foremost is we definitely need the events okayed by the council. That's first and foremost, or nothing else falls in line. Second of all, we need to have a budget set up, okay, for a line item for the events, and then a budget approved as well. So for this particular event, okay? And one other thing I wanted to mention to you all, every time that we have an event coming up, I'm gonna give you a report. So, we can even, I don't know if you wanna address it and say that, you know, each event, the cost should come in front of this board. I don't have a problem with that as well, because I think everything should be about checks and balances. But this way, at least we can start getting these donations going forward. The other thing, is creating this donation letter. Now, I'm the one that actually asked for this donation letter, okay? And the reason being is, I don't want our volunteers going out trying to get donations and making obligations from the city that they're not allowed to make. I don't want them misstating anything. You know, I addressed this early on. Manager Reeves knows that. I don't want to have any problems, so these are things that I addressed right away. I did this with the school system. I think it's a great way to approach things, so I need that letter approved that they create. So I'm asking you, basically, the council to approve the letter that the three of us create that keeps the city protected when we're getting donations as well. So that's what I'm.
I mean, approve the creation of the letter, the process, and then we'll approve the actual physical letter.
Yeah,
later.
now, if the other thing I would like to ask, so we can keep moving forward, because I do have a time schedule here on this particular event, should the letter be created, and I'm hoping it will be created within the next week. We thought it was going to be created a week ago, but he's been dealing with budget stuff. If you all have a special meeting for anything, would this board be okay with me bringing that letter in front of you at that special meeting to have for your approval as well?
I think so. I'm
I think as long as it goes to Patty first and she puts it on the agenda, I don't have an issue with that.
And I think, okay, so Glenn just mentioned to me, we can only do one thing on this. Here's what I say, just based on what you just told me. We can't give you approval on the budget tonight. We can tell you that we will put it in and work on it in the budget, because that's coming up next week, so that'll be part of it, and you'll be there, I know, so make sure that this gets heard and that this gets into our budget. That's the budget part of it. We have to give you the okay on the events, so that we can move forward. That's number one. In terms of the letter, donation letter, we can approve the process, saying, sit down, create that with the city manager, city attorney. We can approve the process. In terms of the letter, you have to bring it to us. And the same thing with the release. We can approve the process, but we can't approve a letter that hasn't been created yet. So I think tonight, we can give you the okay, if everyone agrees, to go forward with your events. Okay, that at least gets you going, and now you know you're having a fall festival at least. Now you're gonna work out the details, and you're gonna come back and bring that to us, but you're blessed to go do the process of creating the donation letters, the release letters, and that type of thing. The budget part takes care of itself next week, and you've explained it well. Explain it again next Monday if necessary, and then hopefully that money will be allocated to you in the budget process. But budget process goes on all the way through to September right now, so up to August. So we can't give you money tonight, although I believe Mr. Reeves said he does have some money. I mean, if it's seed money, it's, if you need to buy paper plates, we're gonna get you money to buy paper plates right now in advance if you needed it, I think. This is me talking.
Well, the city will
Would that
buy
clarify anything?
Just to clarify.
City.
The city will buy it.
I'm not buying it.
Unless you want to buy them, Mayor.
I'm not buying it. I'm going to the dump tank.
I would like some clarification. You stated you didn't want anybody going out and doing anything until you had that letter. But then you also stated you already have people committed. So has that process already been going on?
Well, we said tentative. Okay, it's not a sure thing until the council approves it, and that's the way we've addressed it. It's not a sure thing until council approves it. And at the end of the day, this event could not happen if they voted down. And that's how we've been addressing it with the people that are considering sponsoring this. It is a big step for the city, okay? And this is a big process, and we have a short time window to create documents, to get things in place. So we are going to have to, we had to be a little more creative to get the first event under our wings. And, I appreciate everybody's help. My board has been tremendous. I just, I couldn't have done it without them. Okay, and this council, the support of this council, the city manager's been right on board with helping us as well, so, and his staff.
Okay, so I think if we had it correct, council, let me know if I have it wrong. I would need a motion to approve their 3, you want the car, you don't need the car show at this point, right?
Well, if we could go ahead and get the car show,
Okay,
then we could put it on the calendar maybe.
4 events, so the Fall Festival, Halloween Truck or Treat, the Christmas Festival for the children, and a car show to be determined. So we're approving the 4 events, that's giving you the go-ahead to start working on those events and actually putting them into play.
Right.
Working on the creation of the donation letter and the releases with the city manager and city attorney as necessary.
Correct.
That's what we're authorizing you tonight, the rest you get through the budget process when we do
Right,
that.
and through all of this, I just want to make sure that the council knows that I have no problem coming up here monthly and giving you an update status.
I was gonna ask
think
you.
it's part of our responsibility to do that, and that way if you have any questions or actually even have any advice for us on things we could do, we're totally open for it. We had some council members come to our board meeting and they gave us some great input and it was well received, and thank you for that.
Thank you. Now, so we have a motion for the 3 items. Approve their 4 events. Again, Fall Festival, Halloween Truck or Treat, and Christmas Festival or Christmas Party and Car Show. Approve their creation of a donation letter. Approve their creation of a release letter. And that's the 3 items that you walk away with tonight. Do you have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Council, questions or comments? I think we've killed this, but if anybody else has
I
anything.
do have one
Yes.
question. Lynn, just not trying to put a wrench in the works or anything, but have we confirmed that we do have enough liability insurance for that type of a crowd on our property?
Yeah, well, the only issue we would have would be if there was any beer and wine. Then we would have to purchase liquor liability.
Which is a couple $100.
Three something I think we looked up.
And it is factoring in the cost.
Yeah,
And
plus
we-
you have to have deputies, that's
She'll
another
be here.
requirement. Well, the deputies having a display and deputies for liquor control, there's a requirement to have a deputy. It's different animal as far as a city event. That there is a cost for that.
You were leaning against the liquor anyway. I mean, it's on the thing in case you get a donation, I think. but
Yeah,
it's
in
not.
case we get it, we're not gonna, it's not
Not the first time.
factoring, we're not gonna purchase it. It would have been if we got a donation, is how that is stated. But as you can see, and it's been well thought out, we wouldn't go outside the guidelines of what we need for safety. Safety actually was the first thing I addressed with, before we even scheduled this. I addressed that with Kyle immediately before we even put this on the agenda at all, this event or any other events. We went over and we actually walked outside and took a look at the grounds and discussed the safety aspects of all events before it was even put on or discussed in our board.
Do you have any citizen comments on this? I believe we can go to a vote at this point, and it's an overall vote, right? So all in favor of this motion, again, to state it, since I have to restate it, we're approving 4 events: Fall Festival, Halloween Truck or Treat, a Christmas party for the children, and a car show to be determined. We're giving them the go-ahead to move forward with the events, giving them the go-ahead to create a donation letter for sponsors, and giving them the go-ahead to create a release letter, all to be done with the assistance of the city manager on all of this, and the city attorney as is necessary for any of the legalities. And we're giving the Parks and Recreation Board the go-ahead. So, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Carries unanimously. Go forward and have a great event. And thank you personally, and thank you your group. I watched it last time. You guys were absolutely amazing. I think you left every council member who was there just speechless. You really guys did a tremendous job.
I'd like to make 2 additions to it. We also got about $3,000 or $4,000 worth of trophies already donated so that we can use for these events. So we don't even have to pay for those when we talk about things coming out of the budget. So when we get, like with the car shows and stuff like that, when people pay to enter, Okay, we've already have their trophies. When we do the parade contest, costume contest for the kids, we already have trophies to give them, so.
And these aren't little cheap trophies. This was a dance studio that was moving, and June happened to get in touch with the owner. These are like $40, $50 trophies, and thanks to John Hansick, we went after a council meeting at 10 o'clock at night and picked them all up, but we have a truckload of trophies, and they're impressive. All we gotta do is change the nameplate on them, so those are thousands of dollars worth of trophies, so that's tremendous work, so.
And just one little thing, if you don't mind, is there is openings on the park board if anybody's interested.
And you will come back next month and give us an update on where you stand with this, because I think since everything's going to be changing, I would like to personally know it if the rest of the council doesn't mind. I'd like to hear an update on what the progress is particularly towards this fall festival.
Absolutely.
And June, sign me up for the dunk tank. I'm all in. My kids will love that.
Oh, great, thank you.
And you know I'm in, but you need to figure out what you're going to do with all the
Yeah,
money.
and we are looking for sponsorship if anybody's interested and they want to set up a table for their business. Even, we'll take some sponsorship that way as well.
Just one more time, I'm going to ask for clarification again. You said you hadn't been accepting any donations, but then you stated you did accept the trophies, correct?
The trophies were given to me personally, and then I donated them to the city. The receipt is made out to me.
Thank you, June, and thank your board on our behalf. I think you're going to do something that's going to make this city very proud. And by the way, folks, this is something that we're gearing towards our city. Not that we're going to ever turn away someone who's outside of the city, but we're not looking to become a tourist destination here. This is a thank you for everyone in our city. So that's where it's really going to be focused on in terms of its advertising and focus. Thank you again. All right. We now move on to the discussion on the City Council work sessions. This was requested by Mayor Dunn. Mayor? Vice Mayor?
Mr. Vice. Just some background on council work sessions. Regularly scheduled council work sessions have not always existed. They were essentially created with the 2018 council turnover. They originally intended to serve multiple purposes: baseline the council members' knowledge on issues, foster discussion, look for improvements, and engage the council. They were brought to fruition to go ahead and serve as a forum to examine best practices for managing the city. On a quarterly basis, provide a focused review of such areas as community safety, NLE, budget, codes, committees, and boards, as well as discuss general business in order to expedite our regular council sessions. In other words, we would discuss issues at these work sessions to be prepared for the next council session to eliminate a lot of the back and forth that's going on now. We could have sifted through a lot of this discussion at a work session and be ready to just get business done at the council session. So, my sense is that maybe we haven't backslid completely, but we're not continuing to move forward and improve on the process. So I'd just like to put some renewed emphasis on the council work sessions by validating the scheduled dates and times. It used to be scheduled for the third Monday. Is that still pretty much what we're looking for? Same time as these council sessions. And look further forward than just the next work session, perhaps let's put out a call for agenda items and pencil in the next 4 to 6 months worth of agenda items. That gives us a chance to think about issues and prepare and do any research or data search that you want to do. What I propose is I'll take this on as an action item and work with the city manager. He's my alter ego, and just like all the data we called for this looking down the road for the 2024 depletion of the funds, I mean, he's my alter ego, and he's the guy who rolls up his sleeves and digs out the numbers and helps build the assumptions and stuff. But I'm going to work with him, and if it's okay with the rest of the council, I'll build a straw man agenda for the work sessions with and I'll bring it up for the next work session or the council session so we can move forward.
Thank you for your offer, number one, to do that. I will say one thing. We had been holding work sessions up until this last month. This last month, we started with the budget, and because of that, I discussed with the city manager about temporarily getting away from them. It's not something I really wanted to do. We were making some good headway, I thought, at those meetings. A lot of issues that, this is only for those who may not know, this is our only opportunity to discuss as council members some of the issues. Under the Florida law, we're not permitted to, I can't pick up the phone and talk to Glenn Gunn about what's going on in the city. That would be a violation of the Sunshine Act. So we have to use these work sessions, which is correct. They never used to have. This is our opportunity to discuss with each other. It's a lot less formal than it is right now up here, and we have back and forth. And I think they were being utilized, but with the budget, we wound up temporarily delaying them because we had so much other stuff on the plate. I'm not so sure that they shouldn't be continuing because there is stuff that needs to be discussed. Dave Gaddis brought up something last month, and I'm going to bring it up during my time here about this whole issue with these people holding us cyber hostage and stuff. This is stuff that needs to be looked at, and it's not something we want to even lay out here in a formal council session. So I agree with this, and you have my blessing if you want to take it on. It depends on what the rest of the council says, but thank you.
I agree. Thank you, Glenn, for bringing that back to light, because it was something, we got a lot of things accomplished, and yeah, if you can say thank you for taking on the spirit of the project.
I agree, I actually was the only council member that showed up for the last work session, because I didn't get the memo it was canceled until Patty saw me in the parking lot, so that was actually kind of funny. But, so I was all eager to go, so I'm ready for the next one. I didn't.
Be here Monday.
That's a budget session.
And the 29th.
No one else showed, I'm just saying, slackers.
Does anyone on council have an objection to having Glenn go forward with this, and just, if we could just all get a chance if there's any agenda items to put in on this, but appreciate you taking it. That's great. That's wonderful. Anybody opposed? Let's do it the right way. Is everybody in favor? Aye? Aye. Opposed? It's yours, 7-0, Vice Mayor. So, do you want to have one this month, or do you want to just push towards August at this point?
No, I'll just prepare and start thinking about August.
I think that's good, given what we have.
So we do not have a work session this month?
No work session.
Good to know, I apparently I missed the first one.
You have 2 of them this month.
2 budgets, you have 2 budget
Next time I
sessions.
worked it, I was prepared to show up again.
Was anybody planning a vacation in August?
I was, yeah. And then I'm gonna get one, but I'll figure something out. That's why we have a vice mayor too, in case I can't be here, so people chair the meetings. Okay, is that everything on 11? Okay, we'll keep it with you, because you had asked about 11.5, which was the added item, the discussion of the Bel Air Bluffs bicycle situation. So turn that over to Vice Mayor Gunn.
Yeah, I guess Bel Air Bluffs has moved forward with the county to try to restrict bicycle traffic on the sidewalks of Bel Air Causeway. And they came to us because they said, hey, what's Bel Air Beach's opinion? We basically only go halfway up the bridge there, and the city manager at the time didn't have any inputs from the council or residents on that, so he said, well, we don't really have any pushback on it. And I discussed it with him briefly, and he told me what had pursued or what had come about during that discussion with Bel Air Bluffs, and I just kind of...
Actually, it wasn't a discussion with Bel Air Bluffs. It was a discussion with Tom Washburn of the county. He called me up and asked me if we had a problem with putting a sign on the bridge that said, if you're on the sidewalk portion of the bridge, you have to walk your bike across. There was never any discussion with Bel Air Bluffs. I'm sure the county made the same phone call he made. And actually, we brought that up with the mayor, and I spoke to him about that, because he told me months ago it was going to be done, because it's really the county's decision.
Okay, so I didn't take a strong position on it at that time. And recent events have kind of brought this to the forefront again when the young lady was killed on the bridge off of Indian Rocks this weekend. In the bicycle lane, late at night, killed by a drunk driver. Okay, so just a quick discussion of risk management. Risk is a function of the severity of the consequence and the exposure. A thin painted line that depicts a bike lane does not protect you from a car. Okay, that's the purpose of a barrier or a railing of some sort. Florida law says it is legal to ride a bicycle on the sidewalk unless it's prohibited by municipal ordinance or restriction. You are allowed to ride on the sidewalks unless it's restricted by a municipality. The other bicycle law that I'm familiar with is it is illegal to ride a bicycle under the age of 16 without a bicycle helmet. That's the only other bicycle law that I'm familiar with. But I think we need to seriously think about and get some feedback from our citizens, because I think a lot of people, whether if they're typically a regular bicyclist, the guys in the spandex and in rows of 15 or 20 riders, those guys are experienced riders and they have the situational awareness of traffic flow around them and what's going on. The typical person who puts on his bicycle helmet and rides maybe once every week or once every 2 weeks doesn't have those sort of skills. And that's why I think they have a tendency to ride the sidewalks or ride behind some barrier, because they're not aware of the traffic moving around them, and they don't have the full confidence level that people see them and are aware of them. So I'm just throwing this out that maybe we need to have a critical discussion on this issue rather than just toss it over the transom and leave it to the county, because I think Bel-Air Bluffs kind of led the charge on this, and I think the train's starting to leave the station, and maybe we need to give some pushback on this issue.
Just to clarify, you are wanting us to allow bikes on sidewalks as opposed to...
Or consider alternatives. Maybe we need either barriers.
Is this only on the bridge, or are we talking about throughout the city?
No, I think we're just talking about the bridge.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
We need to discuss alternatives. Maybe you ain't just one sidewalk going over is for pedestrians, maybe the other side is for bicycles. There are probably alternatives out there, and we need to discuss the cost. I mean, the county's going to push back on certain things because it's going to involve a cost to them.
Yeah, Vice Mayor, just to, part of this was predicated by a couple incidents that happened, and one of our residents got punched out because a bicyclist and they got into an argument going over the bridge. And really all the county is doing is saying, you can ride your bicycle up to the bridge, and if you're going to walk across, and I walk across that bridge, and bicyclists they don't care if you're walking or not, they'll run you down. And the other problem is going down the other side. When you go down the other side or this side, they pick up speed. So all they're recommending is you can still take your bicycle there, but you need to walk it across. And most people of that level of bicycling don't even make it to the top of the bridge.
Can I just say, I am one of those bikers that ride on the sidewalk because I don't trust traffic. For many reasons, mainly because of the story you just told of the young girl that was killed. Because as I run in the morning, I see every person I run past, they're looking down at their phone. So I will not ride my bike on the street. And I don't see where it's an issue. I don't mind sharing the sidewalk with bikers, and I don't mind, so I don't know why it's such an issue. You have one or two bad eggs, but you're gonna have them whether they're walking or riding a bicycle.
I agree, and when I ride my bike on the sidewalk, I'll go on the street around the pedestrians just so I don't know them down. It's just kind of like etiquette.
Right.
But no, I don't think it should be nobody rides a bike on the sidewalk, because I'm not gonna let my kids ride their bike on the street.
That's not what they're asking, it's only for the bridge, nowhere else. Yeah, because the majority of the people that are going across the bridge.
But aren't we setting precedents in the city if we say you can't ride your bike on the sidewalk on the bridge, but you can as soon as you get off the bridge? I mean, it's kind of a double standard. So I think we need, to Glenn's point, I think we need to be careful and really think about that.
I mean, and the people that are physically fit enough to ride the bicycle up over the bridge are going to use the bike lane on the road. But I still think the people like me would appreciate being able to walk my bike on the sidewalk.
I think what makes sense is they have those barriers, concrete barriers, that they could put up on a bridge between the automobiles or trucks and the other barrier that's up there. Now, whether the bridge would be able to take the weight, that's another question. But that would be, I think, the most sensible thing, because this bicycle going down at full speed with an unfamiliar person doing it and they lose control, they could go over the railing, either side, or run into somebody. I think it's just too risky. They should walk over the bridge if they're going to use a sidewalk for bicycle.
Lynn, I know you and I had a meeting, we'll talk about it actually soon, about, we'll get to the general comments about the, with Tom Washburn regarding the traffic and everything. And this did come up, this is maybe something, he owes us a lot of information, so maybe this is something that we bring back to him, get some more information, and this becomes a topic of we don't need a decision tonight, but I think, this becomes a future discussion at one of these work sessions to decide where our position is, because I think both positions have merit. If you're coming down the side of the bridge on the sidewalk and you're heading straight for someone on the sidewalk, that could be a dangerous situation. But I certainly, I've driven the sidewalk myself when I bike, because I've seen the same thing that Councilwoman Shirley saw, which is a lot of people not paying attention, so it's sometimes safer. The difference is when you're on Gulf Boulevard, if you're one-on-one with a person, you've got a lot of room to go. When you're penned in on the bridge, you've got a railing on one side and a cement barrier on the other, so you're kind of, trapped in there a lot tighter. So that's why the bridge, I think, is a particular concern, so. But.
Yeah, evidently, the only incidents I know, there were 2 on our side. There must have been many more if Vice Mayor's saying that Bel Air Bluffs.
Well, I think it was driven by one incident where a lady pedestrian was run over by a bicycle and injured, and it caused some medical bills and that sort of thing, and that's what pumped it up.
Yeah, because the county's the one that came to us. I just, when he asked me, I said, I don't think anybody cares if they have to walk their bike across.
Well, perhaps next time we do a constant contact, maybe just throw that question in there. Hey, do you have a position on this issue? Get some feedback from the residents, because obviously we don't have residents here.
I did see a resident hand up. Were you finished with council comments? I saw 2. Mr. Hansig, you were first, and then Mr. Sofer.
John Hansick, 103 22nd Street. This thing the Vice Mayor's talking about was predicated by uncourteous bicyclists on the walkways, running into people. And it was reported in the Beach several weeks ago that the city of Bel Air Bluffs was going to impose a rule whereby if you wanted to ride your bicycle, you did it in the bike lane outside the barrier. If you otherwise you walked your bicycle. I think the Vice Mayor or one of y'all had a solution to the problem, which is good. Don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution. You want to ride your bike? Dedicate one side of the bridge for riders, the other side for pedestrians. But then you got to worry about enforcement. But it also needs to be posted. I don't know, because I've looked for those signs since I saw that article in the Bee, and on a Bel Air Bluff side, I still don't see them. As far as the spandex cowboys, I'd like to shoot them all. Only because they have no respect for the law. They are subject to the law just like you and I are in our four-wheelers. They don't use hand signals, they don't do diddly squat. They'll get in your way. Thank you.
Stan Sofer, 117 5th Street. I appreciate the comments a lot of you have made. Bel Air Bluffs by themselves cannot possibly do anything. They can only bring it to the county. It's a county road. On a flat surface, there's no problem with bicycles and pedestrians. But in this situation, the woman encountered about $40,000 worth of medical expense when the bike came down and it hit her about 30, 35 miles an hour and took off and just left her there. The concern that you have with these bicyclists coming down the road, they too will use cell phones and not pay attention. You've got women that are walking their children, you've got prams that are in danger, you have people that with their backs to these bicyclists, they don't see them. These bikes moving at high speed. There's no reason whatsoever that a bicyclist cannot use a pre-designated path on that roadway. They're protected, there are barriers, but on the sidewalk side, because of the elevation, because of the danger of coming down at high speed and moving. And I don't know if you realize it, but a human being at 100 to 150 pounds, plus the weight of the bicycle, moving at 25 to 30 miles an hour is a really dangerous situation. I've seen many of them. I drive that bridge 8, 10 times a day. And you'll see them with their cell phones just going lickety-split. There's no reason that person cannot walk their bike across if they're afraid of the traffic. That's my position. And it was on Channel 10, you can pick it up anytime you want, where they did a fairly decent analysis of it along with the bee. But please, don't look at it as competition between bicyclists and pedestrians. This is the protection of the citizens, and one of our citizens was harmed, and you need to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other citizen comments? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I'd just like to address that and extrapolate it just a little bit. From a 150-pound person on a bicycle going 25 miles an hour, texting, versus a 3,000-pound car going 35 miles an hour with somebody texting. So, again, it's risk management and who comes out on the worst end. I agree. We need to look at alternatives here because you got to throw all of this in the balance, and I'm not saying one way is better than the other. So it's an issue.
Are we going to leave it at that? Lynn, I believe you and I have a follow-up with the county, so we will bring that information, we'll bring this information to the county, Tom Washburn, and we will see what he has to say and come back here. We're not going to take action unilaterally on this.
Actually, it's not really for us to take action, it's their bridge. That's a county facility, and evidently somebody started it. They just wondered it. It's kind of like everything, they just ask, do you have a problem with it? They did some type of study, I know that.
Before we give a city opinion, I think that should come from the council collectively, so
that's fine.
We'll come back. And probably a work session, this is a work session topic, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, did that cover everything? Thank you. All right, so now we're going to move on to citizen comments. This is something that we've moved here, and the reason why we've done it is because we never knew what to do when a citizen made a comment that needed follow-up. Either, most of the times it's the city manager who has to follow up, but sometimes it's one of us. So we're going to have the citizens make the comments. You're limited to 3 minutes. You come up here, you address the council as a whole, you don't address us individually. You're limited to stuff that the council has control over. So if you want to talk about why the St. Louis Cardinals aren't playing well, I can't control that, unfortunately. They're my team too. But we can't do that. So that's not a topic of discussion, okay? But anything that the council has control over is fair game. Do not expect us to get a dialogue with you. You're not going to get a dialogue. We're going to say thank you. And then right afterwards, we have city attorney general comments, city manager general comments, city clerk general comments, unfinished business, and then the city council comments. If you bring up a topic that someone wishes to address, they're going to address it then. If not, that unfinished business, that's where this will go. You'll either get, if it's the city manager's item, it'll come to you directly in the future. He'll either reach out to you, or it's something that will come up at our meeting. As a way of illustration, one of our citizens came up with an issue about parking. People were parking excessively on the grass. It took about 2 weeks. City manager got on that. There was a whole bunch of code letters that went out to individuals who were doing that. So we are listening to you, and it will get taken care of, and it will stay on unfinished business until it does. So that's the way we're going to handle this. With that said, sir, individual in green, and then we'll go right in front there.
John Hayes, 3210 Gulf Boulevard. My understanding is my 3 minutes, I can yield those 3 minutes to Ms. Conry, who will have 3 minutes.
That's
I would
correct.
like to, she may need my 3 minutes.
You'll have a total of 6 minutes if you do
Thank
that.
you.
Is that what you're doing?
Yes, I'd
Okay.
like to do that.
Sure.
Thank you. Carol Conry, 3210 Gulf Boulevard. And I am the president of the Bel Air Sands Condo Association. So as such, I'm speaking on behalf of 24 Bel Air Beach property owners. There's been numerous code violations occurring at the Bel Air Beach Club concerning pets. They are a pet-friendly establishment. I don't know if they're a hotel or a timeshare. Outside it says that it is a boutique resort, whatever that means. We've complained for a number of years about pets on the beach, and nothing has really happened. 2 or 3 years ago, I met with the former city manager, Nancy Gonzalez, and she had some signs put up as people from the hotel will exit to go onto the beach. And the signs just say, "No pets on the beach." Well, I mean, it's like every time they walk by, you think they're giving the international salute of, you know, the heck with you, because I'm walking right past and I'm bringing my dog on the beach. Numerous times we've seen them actually urinate and defecate on the beach, and the majority of the time, they're not being picked up, and it's not fair to the residents. And they're also off leash often while they're on the beach. They vary in size from small to rather large dogs, even though the beach club claims they have a 25-pound limit. Obviously, that's not being adhered to. So I'd like to maybe give some suggestions as to how we might be able to do something about this. On those signs that are there, they're on metal poles, that besides saying no pets on the beach, if we could add additional signage that might say Bel Air Beach ordinance number so-and-so, $118 fine. That might deter some folks from, going out on the beach. I think the beach club should really bear some responsibility here, and they should be good stewards of our beach. They're obviously making money on their establishment, so it's only fair that we hold them responsible in a sense. And I don't know how we could do it, but if the city might be able to create a City of Bel Air Beach form that the hotel is required to, if someone checks in with a pet, and if they check in with a pet, they're obviously being told, well, there'll be a deposit for your pet, and if there's any damage by the pet, you're going to be monetarily billed for that. So I don't know why we couldn't create some type of a city form that the hotel would be required to present to a guest that's checking in with a pet, to say to them, there is no pets permitted on the beach, so I'm not only verbally telling you, I'm asking you to sign this form that you have been told that, and that you will agree not to bring your pets on the beach. I don't know how that would be done, but I do think that maybe there'd be some kind of a form that could be established for them. The possibility of hiring a part-time code enforcement officer. I know we always talk about revenue, and there's always an issue with that. But what I thought is that the decals that we get, the parking decals, that charges $10 for a parking decal that's good for a full year. And for the first one, maybe each additional household member, maybe charge them $5. It gives us revenue to go forward to be able to hire a part-time, even if it's 1 day a week for a couple hours a day, off hours, maybe more in the evening times when it comes closer to sunset, when these people are all meandering out to the beach with their pets and paraphernalia. I just think that it would, again, hopefully deter some people if we start giving out summonses or violations. I know that nobody wants to walk on the beach and step in dogways. And most people are out there in their bare feet. And with the dog, even if it's on the leash, but especially off the leash, you have children running around that if they spook the dog, they can be bitten. It's just not fair to the residents to have to put up with somebody who's here for a week or a weekend, and they don't really care. They're here with their pet, which is wonderful. I have a pet. That pet has never been on the beach. So I don't think it's fair to the Bel Air Beach residents that we have to put up with dog feces and stepping in it. So I would like that to be considered and possibly some kind of reform. And I'd rather we be proactive versus, than being reactive. So if we can nip it in the bud before these people are walking out on the beach, I would think that's a better approach to take. Thank you, I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
I'm going to I'm going to ask for permission to break what I just said we would do, which is address this afterwards, only because I think this is such a critical issue here. It's up to the council. If not, we can address it in our pieces here afterwards, but is everybody okay with getting some comments on that? I'm seeing nods. Anybody objecting to it? Then
I
let's
think
go
we need
forward
to
with
just
council
keep
comments.
it, I just think we need to keep it very brief because
Yes.
this feedback to residents tends to run long and it takes, it's, we've heard the complaint, the concern, it's something that we can't solve here. It's gonna be, Lynn will solve it over months to come and I just, caution about the amount of time we spend on it.
Patty, please put this as unfinished business until this gets done. I do have a question for you though, and while I have you here, because I've seen this problem. We had one time on the beach, some wonderful person, this was on 6th Street, decided to bring his lovely little pit bull and leave it, running around, and it was running around and harassing everyone. We called the police on that one. I'd never like to call the police, but we did. They were there in record time. Have we had, and I'm not saying this is your function, but have you had any responses? I'd like to know how the police have responded, if they've been called on any of this.
Yes, we have called the sheriff's office. Being in law enforcement for 40-something years, I don't particularly think that's a law enforcement issue, to be honest with you. That's why I believe more code enforcement and maybe a second part-time code enforcement officer is much more able to address these type of situations. They have, but of course what we're told is, well, we must see the violation. And by the time the sheriff's deputy arrives, and I'm not saying they're delaying it, but by the time they arrive, the people are gone. So they're not seeing it. So it's very, very frustrating that year after year, complaint after complaint, nothing happens, sir. And it's not a bad comment on the sheriff's office, it's just, again, they have to see the actual incident occur. So, there has been 1 or 2 times, I think, where the sheriff's deputy has actually approached the people that are still on the beach, and he didn't write a summons, he just, I think, told them, leave the beach.
Patty knows how to reach both of you, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to invite you back when we have a solution. This is not, as Councilwoman Shirley said, this is not something we're going to be able to do tonight, but
I just
we've
wanted to
heard
throw
you.
out some suggestions as to maybe how we can think about doing something.
Good suggestions.
Mayor,
Yes.
just to clarify something, code enforcement cannot issue a citation for a pet, it has to be insured. So that is one thing. We can fix the signs, that's no big deal. I'll talk to the attorney about the legality of us giving something to the hotel. I don't know if we can legally force that issue, but we'll resolve it.
I'm thinking you and me are paying a visit to the Bel Air Beach Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a way of maybe holding the property owners accountable in that as well? I mean, they're gonna say, hey, it's not my dog, but I mean, they're providing the access to the beach.
Yeah, but this situation still is, the sheriff's deputy is the one that's got to issue the citation.
He's the only one who can issue the citation.
Sir.
Yes, my name is Leonard Spencer. My wife and Janice and I live at 111 24th Street, Bel Air Beach. We've resided there since September of 1991. We've had very good neighbors, and up until recently. This year, the house next to us at 109 was sold, and a gentleman moved in. And in April, he decided he would do a circular drive. Well, in May, he left for Michigan and was not to return until November. it was my understanding that he is recently are going to apply for a permit to do this circular drive. My question is, why is he applying for a permit at this time when he probably should have had one in April when he started the project? I think many of you have received some pictures and know what it looks like. I don't think any of you would like to live next to it, knowing that nothing is going to be done until November. I just feel that it's not a good idea for us to have to go through that type of living next door to that type of a procedure. Also, with hurricane season here, I wonder if that is going to perhaps create a problem should we have a hurricane. I just want to present this to the council and for your information. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Other citizen comments? I think on the same issue, right? Are you on the same issue?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Mr. Davis, I have you coming up.
My name's Deborah Manson, and I live at 110 24th Street. And I support Leonard with his frustration with this. This yard has been torn up since early May. It's nothing but knee-high weeds and mud. And when it rains, it's in the street. I've already called code enforcement. They're telling me there's nothing that they can do about it because there is no code that to enforce. That's what I was told. My frustration is that I moved to this area to be able to live in an area where certain expectations were held for homeowners. And I have had nothing but nightmares with neighbors. I have one neighbor that it took her almost a year to paint her house. It took her almost 3 years to put in her yard and was parking all over the place on gravel. And now we have this, and yet I'm being told that I live in a premier city. And if that's the case, then why would I have to be here today to complain about yards with knee-high weeds, with projects that were started in May, with dirt all over the place, and the homeowner is allowed to leave the state and not come back till November to do anything about it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Al Collins, 107 24th Street. This is on the same situation, and I forwarded some information to everyone to give them time to review it, because I know our time is short and y'all's time is busy. So hopefully y'all had the opportunity to look at the property or review the pictures, but this has been going on for 3 months. I mean, it's not one occurrence type of situation, and as was just mentioned, I don't understand, because if we go to Bel Air Beach Code of Ordinances, Article 2 with nuisances, I mean, this is failure to maintain property, a condition that substantially drops value of the property in the vicinity, accumulation of weeds, debris. I think y'all have incomplete or never finished construction. So I don't understand why there isn't reason for some code violations regarding this, and why would it take so long to attend to this. I mean, we have a code inspector that provided a vehicle. They're supposed to be driving our streets, and I can't understand, after 2 months, whenever I contacted, it's like nobody's even aware of it. I mean, these things should be reported, and they should be documented. I mean, residents should not have to go to this extent and this long for something to be resolved. And now if a permit is issued, what, we're out another 6 weeks? I mean, 6 months? I mean, we could be into next year. You don't even have to start on it till November, December. So that's the concerns of a lot of the people on 24th Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis, are you on this, you're not on this topic, right? Okay, please come up. Patty, would you please put that as an unfinished item until we resolve that?
Is that something that Lynn can address?
Yeah, he may, but I just want to make sure it doesn't get off there until this thing gets taken care of.
Hi, my name is Marcia Davis, and I live at 612 Belle Isle Avenue. And I too am yielding my 3 minutes to Rudy.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rudy Davis, and I live at 612 Belle Isle Avenue. As a resident since 1991, and an active participant in our city government for over 10 years, and as a former mayor of our city, I have a keen historical perspective into how our city council and mayor should work and present themselves as representatives of the residents of Bel Air Beach. So I'm here tonight to offer my opinion on the recent activities of the mayor and council. At the regular council meeting in June, I cautioned about how a largely new and inexperienced mayor and council should not be replacing a highly qualified and career government attorney that has served the city honorably for over 20 years. However, after making what Attorney Marino noted were less than accurate accusations that questioned his performance, the mayor refused to let him publicly correct those inaccuracies and then shouted him down as he tried to apprise council about his intentions to retire. The mayor made the situation even worse when he forced Mr. Marino to leave the dais and threatened to call the deputy sheriff if he did not. This was an unfortunate spectacle. The mayor's lack of professionalism and calm demeanor were
I'm going to stop you right now,
embarrassing.
Mr. Davis, as a point of order. And I set these ground rules out this morning. Actually, council, I'm going to address this council. We just set the rules out, and it's in our charter and it's in our ordinance that you're not to attack an individual. And to hear that I have a lack of professionalism, Mr. Davis, coming from you, person who excuse me, it's a point of order. You don't talk. So council, I have a person now who's personally attacking me. So what will the council's pleasure be? Should we let him continue to attack me in violation of our ordinances? Or should I call a point of order and give him either a warning or stop this performance? I'll listen.
I am very concerned if you do not allow citizen comment. I will say that. It is about a matter of what has occurred at an actual city council meeting. It would cause me great concern if you did not allow that.
It's a personal attack right now.
I think that we need to be cautious on the personal attacks. I have been attacked by you, Mr. Davis, in comments you've made, and no one corrected you. You need to be cautious in what you say.
I only describe actions I witnessed.
You're describing an opinion, sir, and it's a personal attack. You're the same Rudy Davis whose dining room I sat in who told me that Paul Marino should go. Now please continue with what you're saying and don't personally attack me again or I'm going to stop it.
Here's where you didn't finish the statement. But I said that he's a 20-year veteran of this city. Council has the right to withhold his contract, but a 20-year veteran of this city should be respected enough that you don't demean him in the process of ceasing his contract. Let me stop here before I go on with the rest of this. That was really reprehensible to take a man who's given 20 years of excellent service to this city, not even let him at any time address the reasons why he was being terminated. And then in meetings, work sessions, to have said by two people, essentially that he's too old, he needs to go. has put the city in legal jeopardy, potential legal jeopardy. Here's my resolution to all of that. I think the mayor should invite the city attorney to this floor and to award him a plaque thanking him for his 20 years of service and shake his hand and let him retire in honor rather than abuse him the way we are abusing him after his long term of service. And I'll stop there with those comments.
Thank you.
Okay, then I will finish what I was saying.
Before you finish, I would just say, I would agree that every citizen should be able to comment, but I don't agree, what you were saying about respecting the attorney, I agree, we should respect everyone, and so I would just caution everybody here on being Mama Bear in the middle, just let's all give each other respect.
Absolutely.
To you, to us, to everyone, and please continue.
Thank you. I'm going to skip that whole situation with the city attorney and just wait to see what council does. Okay. If the mayor thinks he is the executive head of the city, he is not. And the mayor needs to read the charter, city charter, that he swore to uphold, as it clearly states that he is merely the presiding officer of council with one vote and represents the city as the mayor primarily for ceremonial purposes. All authority comes from a consensus vote of council, and the mayor has no singular executive authority. If he is giving staff personnel directives, he is violating the city charter, and the city manager should report any such violations in his comments at city council meetings. City manager directives can only come from a majority vote of council. When council appoints the next charter review committee, I fully expect to hear that the mayor thinks that Bel Air Beach should change its government back to a strong mayor form so he can run the city. The residents of this city saw the era of that format in 2004, when they clearly voted for the city manager form of government to protect themselves from the overbearing and illegal activities that led us to...
Time is up, Mr. Davis.
My 6 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Stop me.
Good, well, I'm looking at 8:37, you started at 8:30, so you actually had an extra minute. Want to finish? Finish. I'm going to give you about a minute to finish, so.
Overbearing illegal activities have led us to unnecessary lawsuits, primary reason for changing to the council manager, city manager form of government. The wise residents of Clearwater recently voted down a change to that form of government and the dangerous special interests that it represents. I would remind council that you are legally bound to honor your pledge to uphold our charter and the city manager form of government and to truly represent all of the residents in a respectable manner. And I would ask that you work diligently and independently for your city and not just rubber stamp other person's demands. What a shame when a newspaper recently compared you and our city to the same unprofessional antics of the city of Madeira Beach. That is a new low for us. We are better than that, and it's up to each of you to work to bring us back to a respected city. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? Mr. Hanson.
John Hansick, 103 22nd Street. I realize I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to make this in 3 minutes, but the things that I wanted to speak about seem insignificant compared to what I've heard tonight. So, I would like to bring some history forward about Mr. Marino and the current mayor, if I may. Mayor Manzo did not fire the city attorney. The city council voted to put the contract out for bid, which is their prerogative. I sat here in those meetings and listened to the mayor tell Mr. Marino he was welcome to rebid. I sat through a 20-minute infomercial from Mr. Marino one night about everything he had done. That was all well and good. That wasn't the time or place for that. Also, the former mayor, I made a point of order about a resolution that was an agenda item that was only partially read and voted and approved on, and Mr. Marino took me to the woodshed and said I didn't have the authority or the right to make a motion or point of order. And as I stated to him, I've been a parliamentarian for 10 years. I know Robert's rules. Robert's rules does not distinguish or discriminate as to whom may make a point of order or a point of information. And he argued otherwise. And I stood here and stood my ground, yet nobody on the council defended me. I even went back and restudied everything and approached Mr. Marino the next meeting and said, I may have made a minor mistake, but I still stood my ground. He wouldn't accept my apology. So I'm telling you, this mayor did not fire Mr. Marino. And I know that the reporter for the Bee is in the room. Several weeks ago, the banner headline, Bel Air Beach fires city attorney. Wasn't fired. You need to go back and look at the video. As far as so that's what I want to say about this fiasco with the attorney. I've been here, so have other residents. I know what I heard, I know what I saw. Mr. Marino was not fired. Maybe there were things done inappropriately. I think they've regrouped and everything's gonna maybe hopefully go forward better. Is my time up?
Yes, it is. You finish up.
Now, those are more important than the other things I wanted to bring up. The one thing really quick I wanted to say to the council, I gotta compliment the city manager on two things. The palm tree trimming, but more importantly, last Tuesday, I went across the street to get a newspaper, and at 21st and Gulf, the flag on the pole was tattered. And I sent him an email. Tuesday afternoon, I come home from jury duty, and the flag was replaced. Well done. And to the public works staff, which I also complimented to him, the two staffers did a bang-up job on 22nd Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vanscoy?
Jim Vanscoy, 102 7th Street. I just want to point out that it is unfortunate what occurred with the city attorney, okay? But if we want to be a premier city, we have to start healing. The city has to start healing. We have to start moving together. We started showing that we can work together for common goals, be united, okay? And to do things that benefit the city. We can't go back. That would be so wrong on so many levels and undo all the hard work that this council has done. And I've seen you all unite to do what this city needs to have done to work effectively for our goals, to be a premier city. And I want to say thank you personally. I've seen it, I appreciate it, and I think a lot of the other citizens do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments? I would close citizen comments. We now move to general comments by the city attorney.
I just want to put out a caution, because I know you're taking on a lot with the park board, and we have new board members tonight for the Board of Adjustment. And what you're doing, not a comment on the good or bad of it. It's just be very careful about the sunshine laws in this process because they're difficult to operate under. I mean, it is especially for a small board in a small town. So look to Mr. Reeves, who is quite conversant in sunshine law, to make sure that as a board, you only discuss what you're doing as a board at your board meetings. That's just, again, my small town caution when you're dealing with what you're trying to deal with here. So that you think about it on the front end and not the back end. Other than that, just let me, you know, I very much want things to move forward in a positive way in the city. You are going to get people who come up here for public comment, and they're going to criticize you, and they're going to say things, and they're going to have to give them their time to do it, because that is part of public service. And it is not always pleasant, but that there is no limitation on that. They're going to come here because they are going to want your help, and sometimes they're going to come here because they're going to criticize what you've done. So,
Just because I'm naive with the law, I'm good with medicine, but not the law. So are they allowed to come up, I mean, are they allowed to attack? I mean, they can criticize me all they want, but can they call me names and say I'm this, or that, or, I'm just curious to clarify for myself and the non-lawyers out there.
Look, there's a fine, if they get to the point where they're disruptive, if they're calling out from the audience, I think there could get to be a point with language that it could go beyond the pale. But for the most part, you know, I've not been aware. I think there was somebody in the city of Tampa one time who went beyond the pale in what they said. But for the most part, give them their 3 minutes and move on.
Can you clarify something for me about the sunshine implications here? As a council member, I'm restricted in having discussions offline with other council members. If I'm on a board, I'm restricted to talking to other board members about board or committee members. Are there any restrictions with a board or committee member talking to a council member or the mayor or the city manager?
No, there is.
If a council member is a member of that board or committee, it's
Well, then, yes,
revolt.
when the restriction is for those who are going to act together to decision make. So if it's two people who are part of separate decision-making bodies, it's not generally a problem for them to talk. It is when it's two members of the same decision-making body on something that could potentially come before them.
So what you're saying is there is no restriction on a board or committee member talking to a council member?
No.
I just wanted to clarify.
I can't think of a situation where there would be.
I just wanted to clarify.
We're not supposed to have the back and forth, but I'm going to make an exception with everyone's permission here. Okay. Section 2-64, manner of addressing city council. Item C, all remarks shall be addressed to the city council as a body and not to any particular member. I think that's very clear. I do appellate law. You go by the plain English meaning. So when you say the mayor is doing something wrong, that is addressing something, or the mayor is being irresponsible, you're directing it directly to the individual.
No, he's criticizing you directly, but his comments are to the entire city council. And none of us enjoy being publicly criticized. But again, this is about what all of you are doing and doing in your official capacity here, sitting at a public meeting. And you know, again, now it's not a situation where truly any of you should be individually responding. I think we all discussed that also in this room. But it is part of the public comment. It's part of the purpose of the public comment.
City manager, and you and I have a joint thing to say, so wherever you want to do that, we can do it during mine, during yours, and right now, whatever you want to do, but we had a little meeting with the county, so it's really good news, and maybe we can get onto some good news for a change here. So
Well, I'll let you be the bearer of the good news.
I'll do that and
I'll give you the
appropriate
bad-
credit to you, so.
I'll give the bad news.
Okay, good. City manager, number 14.
Okay, Mayor and Council, we received our CRS recertification last week, so it's done for this year, so we keep the 20% flood insurance, so that's a good thing. I think I mentioned to most of you that the grant for 7th Street, we were not selected in the top of the group. The trash fees, I just want to bring you up to date, I'll be bringing a resolution. The disposal fees have went up, the county raised them, and so there's going to be an additional cost for that. It may be, I'm guessing, a couple dollar increase in the trash and hauling. 3rd through 6th Street, we got our Swift Mud exemption yesterday. Not yesterday, Friday. Yesterday was Sunday. It will go out to bid on July 5th. It's going to be advertised for the stormwater project there. I've given you, the code enforcement officer's given you a report. She's added something. The P's are things that we found out in the city. The C's are complaints. And they're on the second page. There's a lot of warning notices been given for parking on landscape or grass. So that's where that's at. I do want to talk to you a little bit about the issue with 24th Street.
Yes.
We have contacted the owner, the house sold, we've contacted the owner, we've sent the owner letters. The code enforcement officer had another discussion with the owner. It's been ongoing. Our code doesn't anywhere say that you can't dig up your front yard. And I can name 2 or 3 houses right now that have dug up their front yard. Now, we told the individual he needed to, first we told him he needed to just put the dirt back in the hole and let the grass grow. He didn't do that. He's told us, and his son, I guess, lives here. He's told us that they've hired a contractor and they'll be coming in and asking for a permit. He had grass along the edge, so he didn't really have to meet NPDES with silt fence. Today I was down there and he's gonna have to meet the silt fence now because the grass at the edge has died. So we are fully aware of this problem. We've made several contacts with the owner, and we're hoping that the son will get in here. He told us he was gonna come in with a contractor. If he doesn't, by the end of this week, we'll take it to a code hearing. That's our intent.
Quick question. They mentioned that knee-high weeds, is that true? Because I mean, I know that's a violation technically. No.
No, it's, well, what he did, and I don't know why he did it, the guy's 90 years old, I guess he dug it up himself. He piled up this dirt and left it. It really isn't even wide enough for a driveway, it looks more like a sidewalk, but we're gonna pursue this if he doesn't bring his permit application in with the code hearing. So then he's on the hook if there's any fines levied, but it's a process, unfortunately.
Have the residents been told of this process?
Yes,
They didn't seem to know about the
Well,
weekend.
we've talked to Mr. Collins on several occasions and explained that to him. I don't know if Laura's talked to 1 or 2 others in the neighborhood, I know that, but I don't know specifically who it was, other than Mr. Collins, because I spoke to Mr. Collins also. So it's a process, it's not snap your finger and the dirt goes back in the hole.
I would just say, just keep them up to date.
Yeah. Yeah, and if he doesn't, then we're gonna take it to a code hearing.
I do have a question about this issue is, I mean, a lot of our codes can't be specific.
Right.
I mean, there's got to be some subjectivity to interpreting it. I mean, what several residents just complained about it as being a nuisance. And if I just kind of carry that to the next level, I mean, it's just a nuisance to you for taking the calls every week, people complaining about it. So how can we take the position that there's not some sort of elasticity in some ordinance that allows you to say, hey, this is a code violation, and, I mean, it's, hey, is bamboo a hedge, or is it a tree, or what is it? I mean, we go back
It
to
took several months.
on some of these things, and yet you drive by this house, and I have, and looked at it and said, man, that looks ugly. That is not,
No.
I would not want that person living next to me, and if he was living next to me, I would probably be a nuisance to the city manager as well. So, I mean, we just need to kind of get our head around some of these issues and reconsider our position.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of it, and we've made multiple contacts. At first, we had to go back to the original property owner to get a contact phone number for the individual that bought the house from her. Mrs. Leonis on Howard used to own that house. And I guess, I don't know if it was a rental or not off the top of my head, but we have talked to the son, and supposedly there's a contractor coming to get a permit. But if it doesn't occur by Friday, next week he'll get a letter saying there's a code hearing established.
And I would just say, make sure we just keep updating the residents, obviously, it's a big problem and a concern.
Next week, we'll discuss stormwater fees. I did a survey, we'll discuss that at the budget work session. For the people in Bellevue Estates Island, streetlight bases are sitting in the marina. And if everything goes right, they're going to be coming into town next week with the streetlights. So they're going to start the process. I've told Duke that, hey, they need to, you may have more light than you need for a little bit, but I think you'd rather have that than none at all. So I've talked to the Duke representative, and hopefully we'll move that on. I also gave you the Captain Liners, it's in an email, and we, through Captain Liner, we put the little speed trailer out there, and I will tell you, they've been monitoring it. Actually, they gave a ticket to an individual that ran a stop sign, which some of you are probably aware of, but they had the video, and he was clearly past the stop bar, unfortunately. So, it's unfortunate that you get a ticket, but if you're out there driving, you need to stop at the stop sign and not go through the intersection. And
For the benefit of the audience, could you tell them what the results were?
oh, yeah. The 85th percentile was 26 miles per hour on 22nd. This is between Bay Shore and Gulf Boulevard. However, there were 7 cars that exceeded 46, and that's one of the reasons we put the speed trailer out there. And we'll keep it out there for a little bit longer. Captain Liners, put that out to the deputies. But the amount of cars that go through there, I mean, we're talking 1,000 trips, probably. 7 cars is a very small number, but we don't need them going 46. I heard that Mr. Hansick was running a speedway down there, so I'm not sure. And then the last thing I've got is the vegetation you've seen on the beach. If you've been out to the beach, at the north end of town, there's some vegetation there that's been growing. We've sent pictures of it to the DEP because we want to question whether we can remove that because it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's never been there before. So we're looking into that further. But if you hear from anyone that's worried about the vegetation, it's a very unique plant. Actually, it's almost like a tree. And I think that's it for me. Unless you have any questions for me.
Any audience questions? Good count, unfinished business, I don't know if there's any.
I have a couple things I'd like to just check on. Where do we stand at on opening that left-hand lane up from the bridge to the light? To
We-
make it a full left-hand lane turn?
We met with Addie and Mr. Tom Washburn, what, 3 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
And they're gonna, they were gonna look into that, and they're gonna come back to us with something here. I'm guessing it'll be now after the 4th of July, I'm guessing.
He indicated that it would take him a bit to get
Yeah.
back to us.
So
That was one of the items that were up for consideration.
we spoke to him about that.
And then what about the sign on 9th Street, moving that?
This,
You know, well, it's right there and it states Largo and an arrow, and so people turn on 9th thinking they're actually turning to go to Largo, and it's...
I'll ask.
It's too close to 9th Street, maybe we could just move it
Yeah, I
closer
know
to
what you're talking
Garfield.
about.
Yeah, it is.
One way dead end.
And one more question. How many apps have we received on the attorney? The deadline is tomorrow, correct? Do we have an update from the last budget session?
As of close of business today, 2. We still have tomorrow, of course, so it's not unusual for people to bring them at 1:59, or sometimes at 2:01, right, Patty? And those don't count. So they've got till 2 o'clock to turn them in tomorrow.
On the 8th, are we going to discuss that and the engineering to see if we need a special council meeting to address all of this? We'll have the 8 engineering applications also.
Kyle and I are gonna go through those, and we're gonna give you a point system and a short list. It'll probably be at the August council meeting for the engineer. And then we'll see what it is with the attorney tomorrow.
All right. Any other unfinished business questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Harrison Avenue, Duke Energy, did you get the bid or any information back yet?
No, I think the last time it took 3 or 4 months after we paid them, so I don't expect anything, immediately, or not.
So the request was made and we've issued a check to them for the...
Right, and that's in the process, and now it's up to them to go back and look at, I'll ask them for a timeline, but last time, if I recollect, it was 2 or 3 months before we got a number back for the Bellevue Estates, I'm close to 4, yeah.
Okay, and then another question, I know we briefly addressed it in your office, but I didn't get an answer, and that was when we had talked about stormwater fees, and, do we have a proposal or any further information on that? I'd asked that Melanie pull that information together for us, and you said you had some and you'd share it with us.
Yeah, that I mentioned that earlier, I'm gonna talk to you about that on Monday at the budget work session. Yeah, I've got several cities' numbers.
I think that's all I have for you.
Any other unfinished business? And we go into city council comments. We go alphabetically this time, so Rob Naki.
I don't have anything specific, just I would say I always commend Lynn for doing such a good job. And I'm so far very proud of this council. I think that we've done a very good job of working together. We've had our disagreements, we've had our discussions, we haven't all agreed, but I think we've all showed each other respect. And I'd like to just make sure that with our dealings with each other and everyone, we just continue to show respect. That's it.
Thank you. Alvin?
On the next work session, I would like to add something to the agenda, and that's talking about speed limits within the city. So if we could put that on the agenda for the work session. Lynn, I'm going to bounce a question back to you, which I should have done on unfinished business, but the Bellevue Estates Island Spectrum. What are they up to? Since we're gonna put the streetlights in, some of those streetlights may hit the Spectrum lines.
No, the spectrum shouldn't, it shouldn't affect them.
Well, they're up in the air, I mean, the poles are.
Oh, yeah, I understand that, but I think in talking to the lighting company, Clear World, I think we're okay with that, and they'll adjust. Spectrum, actually, I spoke to him today, they're supposed to be getting a crew out here to get that done. It's not gonna take them very long, and right now Duke's scheduled for the end of July to do the electrical.
Oh, they're really scheduled at the end of July, not the end of the year.
Well, they're scheduled to start pulling the wire. I mean, the conduit's done, and other than a couple places, everything's up to the house. So the next process is the wire, and I know I've got a couple places we're gonna replace some concrete. Because I've told the contractor I want to change, so.
Any news on the walking paths?
That's a later in the year project. Yeah.
Okay, how about our grant for the park lot?
We haven't heard anything yet, but I think we got a strong possibility for that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, Dennis?
Well, really, the only thing that I would like to discuss at a later date is further clarification on how these short-term rentals work. They seem to be a huge burden on the city. It seems that the pets, the trash, the drivers, it's a little bit of everything, and it always points back to short-term rentals. And I'm really having a hard time understanding how a business-free city has so many short-term rentals. So I'd like to discuss that and make sure that we are definitely covering, we're basically taking care of the city and not just giving out free rentals as far as to the person who owns the property. I'd like to know some more about that. That's it. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Jody Shirley?
Just a couple of, just recapping on a couple of comments or topics we talked about earlier. When I did a little research, and in the past we've had an issue with residents attacking council members, things like that, I've found that other cities have kind of a code of ethics that they post for their residents, and they almost even go to the extent of sign in if you want to have public comment and read this statement, you know, so that you at least, it's fresh in their mind to keep clear that these are supposed to be blanket statements and not directed to any one person, that sort of thing. So, I don't know, I think we should probably get serious about talking about that. I've mentioned it to the previous mayor, she didn't seem very interested in it. So, you know, I think it's time to take this a little more serious, especially being on the receiving end of some of those comments in the past. And I'm not saying a critical comment, I'm saying an attack, so. And the other thing is, you know, I just want to reiterate that as a council, we decided to take a couple of our contracts that were out of date and put them out in the marketplace to get bids, which is what we did with the attorney and the engineer. And I find it amazing that word is on the streets that we fired our attorney. I don't know how we go from a simple process, other than our attorney feels that he's part of city council and he can speak from the dais as though he's part of council. Our attorney, and we need to be cautious about this in the future, to the point where I don't think the attorney should sit on the dais, but should only give us legal advice, period. Not speak up about actions that we're taking, things that we're doing. So I just want to go on record as saying that.
That's actually
It's very
our,
frustrating to me.
that's our law. That's not even a request. I read that into the record last time. It is unequivocally clear. He is to give, or he or she is to give legal advice only. that wasn't legal advice, what he was doing.
And may I interrupt there too, for a minute? He had time, every meeting, he has mayor's comments. He could have went ahead, rather than in the item number 10, which all we were doing is putting his position out to bid. He could have made those comments without creating a nightmare when he did. There was no reason to, none whatsoever.
Thank you.
And another just caution of allowing people to continue in their contract. When a contract is up, we revisit it. You never allow someone to sit in the same contract for 20 years. They're too comfortable, they believe they have more authority than they have. And that's where we landed ourselves from previous council's decisions. So, okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Swope?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank Lynn as well as our entire staff for all the work you did on the hurricane meeting. It was an amazing meeting, I appreciated it so much. We received such valuable information for our community as well as the people that attended. Hopefully it will continue to grow in the future because I really appreciated all the efforts. Also, I would like to say, and this is probably not going to be something a lot of you want to hear, or maybe not, but going along with Dr. Aki's statement about respect, I think the city should put on the agenda we should put on the agenda to discuss having a luncheon in behalf of the attorney that served us so many years, as well as Melanie, for their leaving the community and the city.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Glenn Gunn?
Your comment about people stepping up for citizens comment, in Dunedin, if you want to speak, there's actually a form that you fill out. And if you want to give up minutes as a proxy to expand somebody else's minutes, you've got to have names and stuff on that. So, I mean, that may be one of those best practices that kind of spell out, hey, these are kind of the rules of engagement. If you want to come up and address us, you acknowledge that you got so many minutes, you don't do this, you listen to this, don't expect this, or whatever. So that was that. Budget workshop, throw kudos back to the city manager, Lynn Reeves, so far as crunching that data and figuring out where we're going to be in the out years past 2024. He's been really engaged on that, and I appreciate his assistance. He's done a great job with that. I brought up information technology at the budget workshop. I said, we're kind of reducing this a small percentage, and I asked some questions about training. So I walk into the meeting you and I had to punch out some numbers, and then it's like, okay, well, email me the results. It's like, whoop, our email's not working. So, I mean, I keep seeing stuff like that, and what I'm going to say here is maybe we need a second set of eyes on this situation. And I can't think of anyone more qualified than our fellow Josh Hollis. He's a grad student in information technology. He's going through some of the cybersecurity stuff, and his engagement with the city is very encouraging. He's trying to get in where he can to help us out and lend assistance where he can. So we may want to touch base with Josh and say, hey, would you be interested in coming in and looking at some of these issues that we're having, and maybe give us some recommendations and suggestions. I'd like to, I'm not sure, has the window closed on applying or signing up for that IEMO training, Patty?
Pardon, I was right in what you were saying.
Did the window close on applications for that IEMO training?
I'd have to check, I don't think so.
I know the mayor's going to it, Jody and I went to it. We were trying to get into the advanced one because we got so much benefit out of the first one. I mean, it explains, hey, why you can't tax, why you can use usage fees, and talk about, and the biggest thing is the networking, because there's a lot of new council members there, a lot of them from the small cities, and some of the newly incorporated ones, and it's a chance to, hey, what are you dealing with this issue, or how are you circumventing this problem? I mean, it's a good networking opportunity. So I'm just throwing it out there to encourage people to attend if they can. I know everybody's got busy, complex lives, but I got a lot out of it, and I'm looking forward to the advanced training myself. IT, You know, I had a funny thought about these sessions are video recorded, there's no audio recording, but boards and committees, we're still using cassette tapes. Why haven't we gone to digital recorders?
It's digital now.
Oh. We joined in 1990 finally.
I was told I could get an email of a digital recording, so
Yeah.
hopefully we have something.
Maybe we're in this decade now. That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
All right. Glad you're still here, Wayne. Sit tight. I got something for you that I want to talk to you about. But let's talk about what June and I did for the city, okay? We woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning a couple weeks ago, drove all the way up to Orlando to meet with Senator Rick Scott regarding hurricane preparedness. We did that because we care about this city. It's the same reason why we're on the CERT team. We got one other citizen in this city, John Hanzik, who's on that CERT team. Now, I heard from a lot of people when I was running about they want to help out the city in the event of a hurricane. And I gotta tell you, Lynn Reeves did a really good job last time. He's got 3 people to help him. Okay, so if we get a big hurricane, he's good, but no one is good enough to fix a big hurricane. We need all the help we can get. There's 3 of us right now that go one Wednesday a month to learn first aid techniques, rescue techniques, and everything else. And I realize I'll have responsibility with the city here, but to the extent that I can help anyone, and it's not just necessarily for a hurricane, it's for any emergency, I'm available to do it. I've already saved a life. June's already saved a life, not from this, it's happened in our past. You know, if I could do that again, that's a gratifying feeling. So, and I invite anyone who wants to do that to participate. What we got out of the Rick Scott meeting was that there is an army of people that they have set. Thank God, as governor and now as senator, he puts a high priority on hurricane preparedness. We met with all the FEMA people, all the HUD people, everyone that really would be involved if we have a major problem here. He had them all there at this meeting, and it was quite impressive. And we've got contact information, so just know that we are not alone if something really, really bad befalls this city. But it is up to us, of course, to do as much as we can. Also in that regard, I place a high value on public safety, and I've been appointed a few months back as one of the Mayor's Council representatives to the EMS board in Pinellas County. I had my first meeting, and again, it's amazing how much is being done in Pinellas County. All the fire departments, Sunstar Ambulance. But there's not a lot of people left at this point, but to the folks who are left and to all the council members, if you hear about any issues with Sunstar or with our fire department, please get in touch with me. I have a direct pipeline to county commissioners, to all the individuals that are responsible, that fund these folks, that make this thing go, and I can get your comments there. So if there's something that's not going well, or if there's something that is going well, please let me know. Lynn Reeves and I met with Tom Washburn. We hinted a little bit about this. Finally, we got to meet him regarding our traffic situation. As many of you know, I was told what I could go do to myself by our friendly mayor of Clearwater. Well, I don't take that line down. So we met with Mr. Washburn, and we gave a variety of proposals, and we are working on hearing back from him. We did talk about what Councilwoman Swope mentioned on the opening up that bridge to a second lane. I brought the idea of 2 lanes on the bridge, a turn lane, number of things with traffic patterns, monitoring. He owes us quite a bit of information. We had about a 2-hour meeting with him. Everything is on the table, everything. So Clearwater may have some surprises, because I brought up, I'm glad you're still here, Wayne, I brought up the idea of slapping a toll, and Lynn put the idea of congestion pricing, if necessary, on that bridge, okay? So if we can get satisfaction from our county, then that's wonderful. But I didn't promise to solve the traffic problem, but I promised to do everything I could to fix it. And I'm not going to take anyone telling me what I can go do to myself, and I'm not going to take anyone telling me that it can't be done. So if we have to toll that bridge, apparently it's a possibility. If we have to put congestion pricing in, apparently it's a possibility. So nothing is going off the table until we figure out why our city gridlocks every time they have a party at the road in Clearwater. That one, Wayne. Okay, now, next thing. Let's do the city attorney thing, and I'm going to end on a positive note, because this is the last time, folks, the last time I'm going to talk about this city attorney situation. As Councilwoman Shirley said, I started here along with the new council members in our first work session. We took a look at every contract, every single contract that this city had, and it's the last time I'm going to explain this. And we said every contract as it comes up gets put out for bid. There were 2 contracts that stood out as exceptions, long-standing exceptions. One was our engineering, and it was, I believe, 3 individuals, and it was bid out without a peep. No dog and pony show, no sheriffs, no nothing. And then we had the city attorney, 21 years in the same position, the Rudy Davises, the Leslie Nateros, all the people who came and spoke to us, telling us that we don't know what we're doing, never once bothered to put that out to see what else was out there. Well, this council voted 7-0 and had the courage to just say, let's take a look at what else is out there. No one fired this guy. No one constructively terminated him. Not one person on this council ever made any remarks about this guy's age. And if Rudy Davis thinks you can sue council members for what they say in chambers, he doesn't know much about law. However, no one ever said anything about this guy's age. He was permitted to give what Mr. Hanzig said was an infomercial the first time. All we were doing was putting the thing out for bid. And I allowed him to speak for, it seemed like an hour, but I think it was, I was told it was 15 or 20 minutes. He wasn't entitled to speak at all under our city rules. Not 1 minute. And I granted him all that time. And I listened, and no one stopped him. I eventually stopped him because it was going on forever, and I still gave him a 2-minute warning. That was only so we could bid the thing out. He had no say in it. He was actually talking about something that was going out to bid. I don't even know if that's something you could do. You're talking to this council. You're also, as an attorney, taking a position against your client. I know that's something you shouldn't be doing. And we went through with it. And then we came to a special session where we had to actually, there was a problem with that RFQ. Glenn Gunn had found a couple issues. We needed a couple extra days to firm that thing up. And then we had a session. And this council had asked a couple of questions, and I said I was going to rebut some of the stuff that was said. I had every right to do that. And everything I said was factually correct or checked with any individual. I can't help it if this guy doesn't want to accept what the reality was. I didn't make anything up. And quite frankly, I sat here and talked about unconstitutional law on the book. His own attorney, Jackie Spoto, agreed with me that our sign ordinance is unconstitutional. There's a Supreme Court case in 2015. You didn't watch that tape, Wayne, when you published your little manifesto last week. You published that we ousted the attorney without bothering to do fact check. You're better than that. You really are. So, their own attorney agrees that the law is unconstitutional. As for the parking ordinance, the proposal I got, folks, for the parking ordinance actually permits parking on our streets. I said, don't even bring this to us. I'm not going with this. I'm not even going to bring it up to council. I don't want to hear it. This all came about because I was prohibited as a candidate from campaigning, which I know is not constitutional. That's my opinion. If Jackie Spoto has a different one, that's fine. You can find out in federal court who's right if someone sues you down the road. I said, don't go there when it comes to political and religious. And that's what we said. No one talked about this guy's age. No one talked about anything other than bid this contract out. No one terminated him. So we didn't oust anyone, Wayne. We didn't oust anyone. All we did was put this contract out for bid to see what else was out there. And I invited him multiple times to the point that I said, I want you to make a presentation in front of our board. I actually said that you will go to the finals. This is like playing a football season and saying you're going to be in the playoffs without ever having to play a game. I couldn't have bent over backward anymore. The night that was in question, he passed me 4 times. 4 times. If he wanted to resign, we could have put item number 10, which is what that was, on a table that item. All he would have had to say was, Mr. Mayor, I intend to resign. Can I say something to the city and to the council? And I would have permitted him to do that. What he wanted to do was rebut everything that I said. That thing was already out for RFQ. There's not going to be any rebutting, and there's not going to be another thing talked about it. He would have had his opportunity to give his qualifications when the time came. He was already invited into the finals. But then what's most amazing, after that entire situation, after he just tramples Robert's Rules of Order, doesn't bother to listen to a point of order, talks over me, doesn't listen, finally we have to summon the sheriff, which is an embarrassment to this city. okay? Then he submits his resignation the next day saying that 2 months ago, he made up his mind and he was going to resign.
Mayor, I'd like to make a point of order here. We're plowing old ground here. You know, we all understand that thing got derailed and there were some misperceptions. That's my first point I'd like to make. The second point I'd like to make is I would ask that you show the same respect of citizens making comments directed at the council as us making comments about the citizenry and residents. We don't need to point fingers. I think it's been a long night. We're plowing old ground here, and we've made our point.
I appreciate that. I don't know that there's a point of order of something that was done improperly, Mr. Gunn, so I'll wrap it up.
It was the only way I could do it.
Okay, I will wrap it up. So essentially, this was put out to bid, and we had every right to do that. We had 2 unanimous votes, 1 7-0 and 1 6-0. So if anybody's saying that I'm dictating anything to council is incorrect. And I don't appreciate the city attorney, our attorney, walking up and down the aisles alleging ethical violations, alleging sunshine violations. It was overheard by people and it got back to me. It's unprofessional and it's unacceptable. That's all I'm saying about the city attorney situation for now and in the future. If anyone has any questions, contact me privately. Let's end on a positive note here. Mr. Reeves and I, along with a major assist from June Van Scoy, June and I have been hitting every city commissioner that we can on an issue that bothered me since before I ever ran for office, and that was sewage floating down 7th Street. We have a lift station that is antiquated, and it can't handle the overflow when we get either a tropical storm, a hurricane, or heavy rains. And what it does is we wind up getting jet sewage trucks that just pump 24/7 so that the thing doesn't overflow. During Hurricane Hermine, they actually lost it, and I walked through it and I was told that it was contaminated water that ultimately probably found its way into the Gulf and into our intercoastal, although the county denies it. Anyway, it's unacceptable in a city like ours to have that. First time I ever met with Lynn Reeves when I was running, he said, well, it's been like that for 20 years, we can't do anything. And I said, well, we're going to try. We've been hitting every county commissioner. June and I saw one of the county commissioners in, of all places, Sam's Club on Memorial Day, and I pressed the issue. That got us 5 phone calls and information the next week. Mr. Reeves and I went to the county, and I'm very pleased and proud to say that what we brought home was a $2 million agreement. It is out for bid at this point in time. The information is out there. They are going to fix that 7th Street transfer station. And what they're basically going to do is get a pipe and run it down to Indian Rocks where the main, and make sure I'm saying this right, Mr. Reeves, where the main pump is that deals with all the sewage for this entire city. I realize this isn't pretty, but it's how we get rid of our stuff. Everything's going to go down there. It's going to go into a holding area, a big holding area, and it's going to alleviate the need to be pumping this thing out and alleviate the need to have any overflow. It's taken 20 years for this to happen. We are told that it will be coming right after Christmas time with the new year. The money has been allocated by the county. It's a $2 million job. I actually thought it was going to be more than that. But big thank you to June, major thank you to Lynn, and major thank you to Virginia Long, who we met in Sam's Club that day. But that sewage treatment plant is going to get fixed. And I'm sorry? Janet Long, and couple that with the work that we're going to do on the flooding, and I think 7th Street's going to cease to be a big problem for us in the future. Did I say that right, Mr. Reeves?
Actually, they've awarded the contract.
Okay.
So that it's already been through that process, and it may not happen right after Christmas, but in 2020.
It'll happen. If not, I'm going to keep going to Sam's Club till I see our council members there, our county members. So with that, anyway, we got one done over here, and it just shows that through perseverance, anything is possible. So we'll continue to fight for this city and fight for what benefits everyone here. All right. If there's nothing else, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. You told me